No, when my friend told me they had them in Walmart, I went down about 7 cases.
I'm so much of a, you know.
Just in case I have a run on it, yeah, I gotta have it for the holiday. I have to hide it in my basement because my kids will steal it.
That's who I am, but I'm also.
Dr. Pepper zero with coconut.
Extension down
Brittany,
there.
what we'll
I'm
do
not good at.
is.
I'm sure that you have a lot of.
Technically, I can start.
I don't have anything on the other side.
Just to see if we get to our first interview.
I have my laptop, thank goodness.
So I set my alarm a half hour later.
Yeah, very
Because
little.
then I'm like, crap, I gotta get up.
It's the end of the summer. end of fall. Kind of done with our.
Good, Diane, did you have a successful peach season this year?
to our condo.
Yes,
Oh,
but extra.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I
what we
love
have a family that,
What would you call
that
it?
does most of
Well,
it.
we
It
have
was
the
beautiful.
World Mark
Pure
timeshare and we have like
Yeah.
50 of them
Yeah,
around the country, so we
Wherever you
go
want to go.
wherever
I've seen it
wherever
sitting
we
out there,
want.
right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, his are gone.
Yeah.
He's got a loyal following.
Daughters and her family of
Because
six.
you had some like business and stuff. Does that depend on what kind you grow?
St. George.
On how big they get?
The condo there. Got my wife's brother and sister-in-law, they live in St. George, so we're gonna go hang with them a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So,
Well, that sounds good.
So this month is very busy.
Give Randy a little bit more.
November's very busy.
Yeah.
December's very busy.
I mean, I don't know how a man can get laid. They all have to do is get up.
Hang on while we get through the
Come down, put on makeup,
holiday
they don't
time.
need to do their hair.
Yeah.
Should have told you the recording.
Got your yard dinner, right?
I just want to know if
I need.
Bob had said something
Trailer.
similar in reverse. what has to-
Oh, yeah.
I'm just
We got
like,
pump the water out of that.
I was a man, I would never be late for anything.
Oh.
Just gotta put pants on and go, right?
On my list.
Or throw on a hat. In
Find
high
new
s-
shoes.
High school, we just put a hat on now, so
Find.
little girls wear hats
Oh.
too.
About-
They called you, yeah.
Oh, we're just barely splitting.
Oh,
In
you're.
fact, the bishop told me that I'll be released because
Had to put pants
our
on and go.
section of the ward is going to be going to a different ward.
So. what
And
was
so
your
I
calling?
know nobody in this other ward.
What was your calling before? That you're being released from?
Executive secretary.
That's a good job.
Yeah,
for
it
you.
is.
I mean, you would be really good at that, for sure.
Yeah, I really liked it. I'm pretty
And
sad.
we need to
But
go.
now you know the inner workings, now that, that's just a promotion.
No, that's not gonna happen to me. I'm too old to be doing that kind
Oh,
of
yeah,
stuff.
like heck. Yeah.
Hey. Actually, 15. It's good to have you. Good to be here. I'm just gonna wait just a couple more minutes and then we'll get started.
Been busy all summer long, but
Mhm.
yesterday we got, decided to go for a horse ride. We
No, when I drove up, I went, I already got the Christmas.
went with
lights.
some other people, but.
I'm away.
Street.
I hitched a ride with my neighbor.
Okay.
The other guy out there working, I'm like, oh, yes.
Stay on all the time.
Oh, did you hit hard? I'm sorry.
So I'm headed
Since you drove in.
for,
Oh my gosh.
got surgery in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Oh,
And I
good.
was
Okay.
going, maybe I could do without this. I knew it was torn and it all, they always say that, you need it done and all. But after yesterday, I'm going, there's no question. I didn't sleep at all last night.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, man, I'll tell you. A little stinker. There was just a little tiny mud hole, water seepage in this little ditch, and then it went up pretty steep and it jumped and it then leaped again, and then I was trying to hold on, but didn't. So that's
Well, you've been around horses enough to know
all my life.
that,
It happens.
that happens.
It happens.
That's this.
We put a new roof on the house.
Okay.
Tore off all the shingles, 2 sets, and then put down 70 sheets of plywood. And
Wow, that's a big rebuild.
and then 1,500 shingles. Diane handed me almost every one of them. We did all the work.
Oh, okay.
So
And then I came over and I gave him the swatch to cut.
just lost some siding and painted it and put it back on and reset the,
And that was just this summer? Wow, you've
painted
been doing a lot.
reset the gutters and put on a new swamp cooler.
So faded.
The guy,
Gary, he won't let me.
the onions down here. And I told him I'd buy hay from him. I said, I'm happy to come give you a hand. He called me. And it went from like, I was thinking, maybe a couple weeks to a month worth of work, and we were working every day, 6 days a week. As hard as we could go. So that was like a lot for the old man.
Yeah, I
I
can
was-
see that.
I was one of 5 guys driving truck and
I have a bag full of stuff, so it's
I'm
gonna get there. Let's go ahead and get started. Sorry for the delay, council. First, I want to just welcome everybody to the Roy City Council Vacant. I think we're calling it the Vacant Seat Interview Agenda. Okay, that's the kind of the title of this meeting. Okay, time is now, first is October 22nd, 2024. The time is now 8:09. Sorry for the delay. I want to recognize and welcome that we have Councilmember Jackson with us today, Councilmember Scadden, Councilmember Saxton, and Councilmember Sophie Paul. Now, as you're aware, Council, we're in the process of interviewing this session for a vacant city council seat. The process will go just like in this way. First is what we'll do is we'll conduct the interviews this morning. I ask in the information I sent to you, keep the information to yourself as you assess these individuals, their abilities, their performance, their qualifications. Then later tonight, okay, at 5:30, we'll convene a special city council meeting. In that meeting, prior to taking a vote, certainly an opportunity for you to talk if you have an interest in talking. And then at that particular time, I'll ask you then to, on a roll call vote, Brittany, we'll do a roll call vote, and then we will collect your votes based on the information you have on the candidates who have submitted. We have 9 individuals who have showed an interest in this process, and we appreciate the fact that they have done that. They've signed up. Just for the record, so there's no confusion, and Brittany helped me through this last phase of this comment. The city went up, and rather than going up there and trying to select who's number 1, 2, 3, all the way to 9, they put it in a random generator. And in that random generator, the system, okay, fairly just distributed the names. So it's that process in terms of how we got the individual schedules for the individuals to convene in this interviewing process. Council, based on everything you have seen, everything you've read, is there any questions before we get started? Okay, I will indicate to you, we placed a copy of the questions on the table for the interviewers, okay, interviewees to go ahead and look if they need. I've also placed a copy of the interview questions on the table out there for them to pick up, okay, as they come into the interview. This is a public interview, okay? In some areas that would probably be almost just unheard of. But because of the Open Meetings Act, okay, we have no obligation that every time we convene a council, it has to be a public meeting, much like this meeting here. So everything is public, everything is recorded. Obviously, I think we've got YouTube on. Is that right, Brittany?
Yes.
YouTube on. So we're basically, this is very public, and we're going to go through the same questions. If, as I stated in the information I provided to you, if you think there is a question that you would like to have further clarification, okay, the answer needs clarification, please ask the applicant or the interviewee. You certainly could do that. Otherwise, we want to keep the interaction between the interviewees and the city council somewhat to a minimum. Okay? That way we can provide fairness in terms of the interviewing process. So with that, we got about 2 minutes. Our first interview will be Trina. Is that right? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for applying for the job. I think that's wonderful. Okay, we'll give you a couple more minutes and then we'll get started here at roughly 8:15.
So the times like. So the next one's at 8:45. So we'll just cut them off if they're still talking.
I'll do the best I can, but I would try to encourage them to basically keep the interview down to 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then give each council member about 10 minutes to go ahead and just simply assess, write down, copy down, whatever you feel you'd like. I do want you, each one got a booklet. Please, at the end of the day, when the decision process is decided, would you make sure that Brittany gets that booklet? Our intent would be is it becomes part of the public record. So anything you may put in there.
I want all of our notes.
So you're gonna keep all our notes?
So we don't get them?
Oh,
No, you can keep them through the day.
oh,
tonight-
okay, to it tonight.
Tonight.
Okay, because I'm like, get out my camera.
I know, I'm like, wait.
After the decision's made.
Make a copy, I can remember everything.
At the very end, I will collect them.
Okay, tonight.
It's also a good segue where technically this is a job application and an interview.
Right.
If I jump in and stop you with any questions, it's nothing personal. It's just there are questions in job interviews that we should not and cannot ask.
Yeah.
I don't foresee that happening.
Will any of the applicants, will it be an opportunity for them to ask us questions, or is it just they answer?
Just a response to the 5. Normally, I think, and that's a good question, Randy, normally the process would be is a lot of interaction that takes place. The hard part when you're in government is that you got to make sure that you provide what appears to be a fair and equitable treatment of all candidates. And that's hard to do because you want to interact. You want to get more out of them. You hope that maybe they'll ask the right question or a different question. That's hard in a public setting. So our intent then would be is to make sure that they've read through the questions, make sure they provide a response to the questions, assess those. I think you did a really good job picking the questions you think would help you to make that decision. And then for almost everybody, I believe, submitted a resume and cover letter in some cases. You get a pretty good piece of information about the candidates, okay, in terms of helping you in that decision process. So, but good question, Randy. It just that normally in an interviewing process, I would say, do you have any questions for us? But in this case, we can't really do that in large part because it would certainly take us over the 20 minutes or 25 minutes. And then the other part obviously would be is it trying to keep it fair and equitable to everybody who's interested in this position. Okay.
Speaking of time, it's 8:15.
So is it time for Trina to come up?
So Trina, thank you. Please join us.
It's not gonna be too long, so
Okay.
don't worry about that. I'm not a talker. Okay, so do you just want me to answer the questions?
Yeah, you could just pick number 1, 2, 3, or 4. If you'd like me, I can read the question to you, however you like to do it, Trina.
I'll just start with question 1.
Perfect. Okay.
So basically, I'll probably hit on the same things that everyone has said over the years with Roy. I have more than one top priority. There's probably 3 that I would say come to mind. First of all, just business. Well, I guess first of all, I'm Trina Favero. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Business is one of the top things that we need to get more businesses. I mean, we've talked about that for years and years, and I think that we've started to get to that point a little bit. But I kind of see them coming and going. Obviously COVID impacted that, but we need more revenue from businesses. There's no doubt about it. Which kind of leads to the next question, but I'll just go with that for a minute. The other thing I've noticed that's really bad, and I hope it kind of subsides once 5,600 is done, but 1,900 is literally a joke. You know, the other night I went to leave at 4 o'clock and just to get on the freeway to go to Salt Lake, and I had to wait through 5 lights, I think, on 5,600. And it was weird because 5600 wasn't busy at all. So I think we need to, there's got to be something. I hope it kind of subsides, but we've got to figure out what to do there because it makes it so everyone else is coming through. Obviously, it's not just Roy citizens, but it makes it so Roy citizens can't go anywhere because it's our main thoroughfare, and there really aren't anymore. I don't know if any of you, when you put out signs in Roy, I didn't realize I've lived here for 25 years, and you go to put out signs and try to get to through neighborhoods and try and figure out and navigate, and there's no way through some areas of Roy. So the other thing is that I think that Roy needs to become a nucleus on their own terms, not on the demand from other cities. Because I think that's what's happening is that we need to bring in the businesses, figure out how to have the right infrastructure and be the nucleus on our own terms, because we're basically being used all around us, but we're not utilizing it, I don't think, as well as we should. So I feel like we need to do that too, so that we can control what's happening in our city rather than the cities around us controlling what's happening in Roy City and then talking crap on us after the fact and saying that it's, Roy. Oh, so anyway, the business part kind of ties into the next question, which is the property tax increases. I realize that it's and I've talked to other council members about this, that it's difficult, and obviously I haven't seen the budget and don't know what could be done other than raising property taxes. But the problem is that homes have increased substantially, so property taxes have gone up anyway across the board. And I can give you an example. We just bought a house in Roy and paid double for what our house was, and it's a starter home. And the property taxes from the time we bought it in April to this November have gone, it's $150 increase just on a small starter home in Roy. So, and I don't even want to talk about how much mine went up, but it's a bigger home, but you're already raising them because the values are increasing, and in some aspects, they're raising to the point that it's not a reality, to be honest, because I'm a real estate agent, and some of them are too high, even based on what they're selling for right now, especially since we're kind of seeing a little bit of a lull. So I believe that we need to find other ways other than raising property taxes. The other thing with Roy, and I do appreciate that we have a fire and police department, so I would like to keep those services because I've used them. Unfortunately, sometimes the fire departments showed up at my house when my alarm goes off. So not on purpose sometimes, but I think that we need to be really careful about raising property taxes because we're already high compared to the rest of the county. I have brothers that live in other cities and they don't have the property tax that we do, which also steers people away when you're, showing homes and they're looking at how much the taxes are. They look, buyers look at that. Okay. So the next one, this is a hard one to engage residents. I've worked with PTA a lot, and it's been the same group of PTA. I've literally brought them up with me. Sometimes I can pull in other women, but it's hard to get anyone to engage in anything. So it's hard to get them to engage in government as well. They have a lot of views, but when you hand them the shovel, they don't want to do anything. So I think the only thing you can do is just be as friendly as possible with people, show up at events for the city. And I don't know if I want to say make them like you, but kind of just feel like, make them feel like that you do care and that you're listening. But that is something that's really hard. And I know that it's been hard with PTA. So I know that it'll be probably worse with government because it's not about their kids directly. So yeah, that's what I would do with that in that aspect. Again, I'm going to bring up PTA with the next question because I've worked with community organizations. I've been on the community councils. I've been in PTA for years. And I think that the biggest thing is you do make sure that everyone has a voice and everyone gets to have an opinion. I actually was just talking with my son about this yesterday, my youngest, who's having a little bit of difficulty with friends and stuff. And I said, the biggest thing is that you need to be empathetic That's a huge thing in this world that I don't know if we have right now is empathy for other people. And so even when you're working with people, like you need to understand their problems and what's going on in their lives. And I think that a lot of times you realize when you start talking and it's very general that everybody does kind of have the same shared goals. So I think listening and just trying to understand other people's views and realize sometimes that your view isn't the best one in the group. So, and know that you can be wrong and not have, you know, the best approach. So that kind of ties into the next one. I don't know what you do when there's no clear consensus except for that you can do your research and try and make the best informed decision that you can, based on your research and what you find out. And again, listen to the different viewpoints. You know, maybe in the case of a city, you look at other cities and see what has worked for them in similar circumstances. Obviously similar cities, because you don't want to compare apples to steak, but you know, if they're similar cities, you can make an informed decision based on your research, and that's about it.
Okay,
Anyone have any questions?
perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Trent. Hey, council, if you just kind of jot down your thoughts,
I went to lift. Thank you.
It's just all one, and you can't have. Your face.
I think we're some agenda.
The agenda.
Godwin.
Okay. All right.
It's swollen up.
Of course, I know Diane's got a lot of good experience. There's several from the planning commission, which is also a really good thing.
Stephen, is that right?
That's correct.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Stephen, let me just repeat what we talked about a little bit earlier for your benefit. Prior to going into the interviewing process, what the city council will do is they will take all the input from all the applicants based on the 5 questions that was provided. I think you picked up your copy of it. Perfect. Tonight at 5:30, the city council will reconvene, and the intent from that meeting would be is to select, okay, the city council member in that meeting. The plan is to go ahead and swear them in. And then literally be seated in the city council, okay, at that time. Yeah, it's just kind of the process we go through in terms of filling a public position. And so a little different than maybe what you've experienced. But certainly our lawyer, deputy city manager, okay, will keep us on track, okay, to ensure that we follow the law in terms of the Open Meetings Act, okay, on this process. So you're scheduled in about 15 minutes, so please read the questions over, make whatever notes you feel comfortable with, and then we'll get started at 1:45. Okay.
South Weaver or out here in Cleveland? Okay.
And she works 2 days a week.
Mhm.
Tuesdays. And Tuesdays is a big day because they have intake.
Mhm.
All these students come in. Like the students. They have to interview
today. We did late.
I jinxed myself.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember what I told you earlier. Yeah. So anyway, I came back like right before I was coming. So,
behind the schedule.
Today's Tuesday.
but I'm here.
Already.
All that matters.
That's right.
I only beat you by about. 30 minutes.
Right. Well, because I saw 8:15. I was like, okay, I've got time. And I walk in, you guys are all set. I was like, oh man, I'm not typically ever like that. I'm usually like 5 minutes early. So there's a first for everything.
My neighbor brought me.
Yeah.
Pretty active call.
I brought my cell phone and I saw some of the IT guys out in the parking lot and I chatted with them for like 30 seconds, not realizing that you guys were all sitting in here, else I would not have done that. So.
And then Diane let me in.
Oh, no.
I left without my key.
Basically headhunters
Mhm.
that bring in these students.
And ask you, I know we're not supposed to discuss, but when you read those numbers,
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to,
no, I just,
do you want me to write them clearly and then you like initial them or just so?
Very
That's, you're
interesting.
basically following my same pattern.
oh, okay, I see what. Okay.
Yeah, so you're doing exactly like what I'm doing,
Oh,
but I just.
They love her out there. They love her.
I'm actually the same. Yes, well, that's the thing is you can go through and verbally tell.
She's called.
He is. Or whomever, but again, that's
I will tell you, Stephen, we don't necessarily have to wait till 1:45, although that's your assigned time.
I'm fine to start whenever you would like.
Yeah, I say let's go ahead and get started if you'd like to join us. Okay.
Thanks. Are you fine if I bring this sheet with me?
Please. I can read the questions, Stephen, or you can just go ahead and read them and walk us through 1 through 5.
Sure thing. So question one you have here is based on what you know about city government, what do you see as top priorities for Royce City and why? Obviously, in my opinion, the priorities are going to be your emergency services, which is going to include the fire department, police as a top priority. to make sure that the citizenry is protected and has access to those services. Secondly, I would say that really this kind of gets into the second question, so I'll probably be brief on this point, is the city has fiduciary responsibility over taxes. And to make sure that those tax monies are allocated not only effectively and efficiently, but wisely with the consensus of the citizens of Roy City. And outside of that, I think the other thing, and this ties again into money, is to help advocate for more sales tax revenue through encouraging businesses, whether that's an individual business or storefront, to come into Roy City. And then I guess this is also a hot button issue with people, and obviously I'm a real estate broker, so I have to mention it, is if the city can encourage any sort of affordable housing, I think that is a priority as well for the city.
Well, and so just for clarification, we can't ask you questions, so you just have
Okay.
to go through apologies.
Sure,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, that,
Sure
you're
thing.
going into that awkward silence, so,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. I was about to ask if this was back and forth or not. Okay, very good. So the second question you have here is, in lieu of the city's tight budget constraints, would you support proposed property tax increase or be more inclined to reduce services should sales tax revenues lag? Why? So here's the thing. I don't feel it's an either or question, which maybe is not the best answer for some people, but I think it's an honest answer. The reality is, when you have a budget, the first thing to be sure of is that the budget is not only balanced, but it's allocated in an efficient manner. So yes, the first thing I would be leaning towards is reducing services. If that means people are fired, so be it. If that means we get rid of stuff that is not doing the city and the citizens a service, that must take a priority over raising taxes. I mean, everyone knows this. With the record inflation, with the cost of living, we must make that the priority. However, because of inflation, obviously the city's bills have increased, just like my bills have increased, just like my neighbor's bills have increased. So after we are sure of a balanced budget that is allocated efficiently and effectively, then there can be a proposal to increase some sort of property tax or other tax, but it must be a last resort. Third question you have here is, how would you actively engage residents in the decision-making process and ensure their voices are heard on important city issues? This is obviously a frustration with any sort of governance. People don't come out to vote. People don't come out to meetings, right? It's really difficult. And then people complain about decisions, even though they didn't come to the platform to speak. I think a lot of things are already being done well in terms of social media and reaching out in that way. I would say maybe some things that could change in the future. I don't recall seeing this. This is an example, like the Roy City days. I think it would have been nice if the city had a booth there to talk to people. That would have been nice, for example. I think maybe there is some sort of opportunity outside the meetings for people to submit questions. Maybe there's an opportunity for people to come in outside the meetings, because the other problem you have with those open meetings is people are still getting out of work, and with the way traffic is now, it can be hard for some of these people to make it in. So I think we do a great job by streaming it, but people don't get to actually be here. So that can be tricky. I think there has to be an alternative for people to actually speak to the city council or any other people within the city administration. So your fourth question is, how do you plan to work effectively with other council members, city staff, and community organizations to achieve shared goals? So to me, this is very much like business, just like any sort of transaction. You have to listen to people, and in the end, you end up negotiating and compromising for the best solution, not necessarily for your own personal endeavors or even personal beliefs, but for the good of, in this case, the city of Roy. So some examples of what I would see as effective work amongst colleagues, amongst staff, and amongst community organizations is obviously an open line of communication at all times. that people can email or even call to discuss what's on their mind. Because obviously I am representing the citizens of Royce City, so that's really important to be able to actually communicate. I think I'm very big into list. If this gives an example, pros and cons, it's a big thing for me. Unfortunately, if I get just in my head, I could have bias. All of us have some sort of inherent bias. So I try to be as logical and objective as possible by doing these sorts of pros and cons list. The other thing I would mention to work effectively is to actually be prepared for meetings, which might sound like a silly thing to say, but in the past, I've been on a board of directors for a symphony orchestra, and, we had people in that organization that were never prepared for our monthly meeting. And, we had a budget, it was like 400,000, not a huge budget because it was a small group, but still, when people came unprepared, it affected the work that we were trying to do. So having that sort of work ethic, I think, really is important. It's basic, but unfortunately, basic things aren't as common as they used to be in our society. Community organizations, I think the thing to mention there, I talked already about communication, but I feel, especially nowadays, there are people who are opinionated. And this kind of goes back to getting residents to engage. These community organizations are made up of residents. For example, I'm a member of Roy Christian Church. So obviously there's a lot of our members that live in Roy, but we also pull members from various other cities like Woods Cross. We pull them from far west and whatnot. I think there are people that are afraid to speak up. Maybe they aren't as articulate, or they're afraid of being ridiculed, or their emotions are really strong in something, so it's hard for them to communicate. I think that can lend itself to occur in those community organizations. So again, I think talking outside the meetings to these people on a one-on-one basis is a way to work effectively so that we're actually having conversations and having true communication with those folks. Let's see, fifth and final question. How do you weigh different viewpoints when making complex decisions, especially when there is no clear consensus? I already mentioned some of the pros and con lists that I make. That's one thing. So you can actually, I see things visually, writing it out, I can hear it in my head. So I have a public school background. I started my life in my early 20s. So it's a pedagogical term we call triple channel learning, where if you can hear it orally, you see it through writing, and then you have like actual motion. So for me, that helps a lot. I think if I were going to go through a checklist now of how to weigh those different viewpoints, the first thing, and this might be a controversial take, some viewpoints are wrong, or some viewpoints are straight up illegal. It is important we stay within the scope of the law. So we have to adhere to that first. The second thing is the viewpoint might be a good idea, but is it under the authority of the city council? Like if someone came and complained about Roy High School, they need to go talk to the school board. They need to talk to the principal. That's not us. Another thing is, are we sure that that viewpoint is in line with the current budget? I'm always going to go back to the budget because I think, again, that's just one of the priorities for the city. Obviously, is the second question as well. It's a big, big deal for the city council. These different viewpoints, though, I think in again, just our current day and age, there's a lot of partisan politics. I don't necessarily feel partisanship should be at the local level. Unfortunately, it does happen because in the end, the priority is for the safety and security of the citizens. Like we talked about, those emergency services, and to make sure we have that correct fiduciary responsibility over tax monies. So we have to weigh the most effective way to allocate those resources. Even if it's something maybe I don't personally like, if it's something the city needs, and then there are constituents that are advocating for that, I have to represent that, even if I personally don't like it. I do feel there is a difference between my personal feelings and business. And this in the end is business. When there's no clear consensus, it's the hardest part of leadership, right? Because someone has to make the decision. So in the end, we just have to make a decision. And I understand that some people are going to always be mad. Some people are never going to be happy. Sometimes I'm that person. I'll be honest. I'm probably too honest, unfortunately, but much to the chagrin of some people, but I am very fair. I'm very fair and I try to communicate as effectively as possible. And of course, listen as much as I can to those around me and in the organization I serve in. That seems to be the end of the questions, and you had said that you had no questions for me, so I guess that concludes the interview.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Would you like me to hang around or should I?
You can, it's a public meeting. You're certainly welcome, but we do encourage all applicants to be with us tonight at 5:30. We'll go through the formal process then.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Steve.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're gonna find out.
I know.
That'd be a good idea. We'll keep you awake, I don't know.
Tell me about this process. There's a tie.
You're where the Yankees.
That's true. That is
Uh-oh.
true.
Okay.
How's it say? Outside of being a shorter flight to LA, a flight in like JFK or JFK would be the easiest because that's a good Delta hub.
Well, she's been back to New York, what, 3 times.
Has she?
He loves it.
Yeah. Yes. We just had, Brock, Gresham, code enforcement, just actually, and his wife went out there for their. I think they caught it.
Oh, did they? It's really fun. I didn't ask. Really well. We had a big party on Sunday,
Did you? Okay.
a lot of fun.
Good.
And we've got
Yeah, what's the latest on the,
October 25th,
so any day now, basically?
yes. Another, a little girl.
That's Dallas is my.
My wife is our mobile pharmacist, so she's got all kinds of good stuff in her purse.
And my son, Jay's, he just bought a home across the street from where we live.
Oh, we did. He's just doing it as a rent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
That's
It's maybe a little bit early.
Third home.
If it's okay with you, do you okay starting at 9 o'clock? About 15 minutes early?
Absolutely. Mhm.
For 9 o'clock. Thank you.
Okay.
If you want some goldfish, just let me know. I know, but
Those are all yours.
I don't fish, so that's all I can offer.
Any of them would, they know me pretty well, and I don't think any of them would say, yeah, we want Kevin up here to vote no all the time. I actually feel that I have more ability to communicate to them and try to share beliefs, evangelize more than if, I mean, there are some serious legal restrictions if you're on the council about talking with other council members.
Of candidates, what's open.
Yep. And I like,
Try to change hearts is what I'm trying to do.
I admire you for being on here.
Yeah.
I think it's public duty, if you will, that people do find ways to serve. And certainly as a city council or planning commission is excellent ways to do that. And so, yeah, I'm encouraged. 9.
Yeah. I was
I've seen it higher.
yeah. Because when this happened last time, how many people did? Well,
We had about 8 or 9 when we did it last time. But the time before that, I was actually involved. And I barely remember that it was like 20 something.
No kidding.
It was a lot. They were there all day.
yeah.
I'll bet they were.
Well, and that last one was the one that came down to the coin flip too, wasn't it?
It actually came down to,
I know Leon hurt himself yesterday.
Ibuprofen, right? I have some, I have ibuprofen right here.
Okay. I was gonna say, I know Randy carries some and we yeah, we've got some.
sure.
And there's drinks in that fridge.
And they pulled the names.
I always have ibuprofen.
Thank you. I'm
It's up
good.
to you.
No,
Okay.
thank you. That's kind of you.
I want to tell you number 27.
He's a tough cowboy. He's gonna suffer.
You have a headache? Has a headache?
He took a fall yesterday off of a horse and his shoulder's a little bit grumpy.
You're too old. to do that.
I said, you said
Why you don't ever go to the horse?
I don't know what. Thank you. I don't know what. Interact. What I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm sure. She was like, rub some dirt in it, you're fine.
This could be horse medicine.
This is horse medicine. Yeah. This is.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I just
No, that's very kind of
where
you.
you say
She
you,
now had 2 votes and it was.
not a good idea to drive right now. I know usually you can find,
She
you know,
got
they
2
probably got,
votes. I got 2.
the city does have medicines here, just ibuprofen and
Yeah,
acetaminophen
yeah.
and those kind of things.
This is over the top of that.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
But I'm gonna be.
my dad was in a meeting and he says, young man, you're good.
It's sitting upright. It isn't so bad as when you're trying to lay down. That's weird. Huh?
Yeah, no, it's,
Anyway,
it sounds like par for the course.
I'm just moaning. The nice thing is that in 2 weeks, they're gonna go in
I want my computer.
and so. Figure it out.
It's a little while to recover from that, but
Yeah, I had to,
hopefully it'll be better.
I had it done on the right side.
Yeah.
So,
She never run for office.
She didn't go around for office, but she had been previous to that about 4 or 5 years in the planning commission. So when she vacated, when the city council.
Planned on that.
Vacated. It was the next day, the mayor called me, he says.
Well, I was surprised to hear that Joe had resigned.
Yeah, me too. I haven't pressed him on it yet.
Did you come through the planning commission?
Yeah.
2 years.
And did you?
I don't know.
I'm sure it was a tough decision.
Yeah, because I was.
He had ambitions.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that those ambitions have changed.
That was a solo cut.
That's part of what my concern was, because I don't know about you, but he already had my support.
Well, last year's point, well, last year you could run the racing tie and then they went back to the point.
This year is not. They could come down to that tonight. You guys must take- You're gonna make a decision. And it is,
For a while.
Brought you a Sunny D or something.
so we got all worked out.
Right.
Anyway, it goes.
Actually, he could have been one of the 5 of them. Even though he was not.
And guess who does the claims?
Not sure if I would, even
Abilities.
if I could.
Okay.
In that position.
It's really bad, but we're gonna make the best of it, should we need it.
He said.
She'll figure it out. She'll-
Yeah, we're gonna do our best. Point.
Oh,
Flip a coin, it's got land somewhere.
True. You're off the board.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to see what he says.
I don't know.
That's
Job
just
description.
Right? It is.
Pull up your camera, make sure you record it.
Brian, you've
I
been
think
through
it's gonna be
this before.
recorded.
Bottom line
Yeah, it is.
there's gonna be hard decisions, you know.
That's one reason why I want to sit down and say, well, I'm not influencing her, I'm posing upon her. She gives.
And Ellen.
Yeah.
You know, there's the, when we had ribbon cutting ceremonies.
Well,
These are all good things.
so you guys make it popular. That's all I got to say.
So the key is that, you know, it has its ups or downs, but so we got some decisions coming. That's always.
She knows what it's like. She's already served the term. And to know what it's like and then still say, well,
Which will help.
But
Hopefully we get the interest rates down.
nice.
Pushing.
on the same page with a lot of them. We're not on the same page. It's okay.
We're just waiting for the interest rate this year. Trigger on some development.
Pretty hard. at
Her
finding
thought
her
process a whole lot more than people that have never been to a meeting.
You look like the blue hat on.
Steer where we can.
Putting together a budget and trying to figure out where the money's gonna come from, even though they don't do it like I want them
I'd like to see more out of the train station. You would too. And so there's some things.
to. Federal blood money, yeah.
No,
yeah,
They're still coming.
and then
Okay.
when I talked to him,
Yeah.
I was right on to
They had a firefighter.
Oh, and then-
so you know.
The guy has to pay the bill. Just drag me up.
Back in Utah was a series of restaurants and I said, hey, when you get bored, come look at one of the spots. So, you know,
I like it.
well, I'm not giving up. Ever.
The key would be is that you come here as opportunities.
Has been that way forever. and it'll be that way always.
No, last year.
Yeah, I never did shoot with Fazoli's because Chick-fil-A in Layton bought Fazoli's.
That's right.
And took over that land.
Somebody.
And that was my brother's restaurant.
Is he still operating down there? I assume?
He retired.
Oh, I don't know if you've
He
heard
took
that. I've
his-
heard them before.
He took his payout and sold it. Yes,
But Chick-fil-A is still there.
yeah, Chick-fil-A's there.
And who
But he sold his
get
franchise
the
rights
same
to
skills that an already experienced person.
He got a pretty good price.
Well, that's a good business.
It is a good business.
I keep hoping that we can find an acre
Or somewhere downtown Illinois. Yeah. Well, there was I read a study or an article somewhere that says municipality, like, top two retailers they want, Starbucks or Chick's.
That's just the practicality, and they're unwilling to stop paying for programs.
We had one of them.
Wait, we got Starbucks, yeah. Yeah.
That's the problem is, nobody wants to drop anything.
My daughter actually last week went back to Atlanta, talked to Chick-fil-A to see if they would
We've added an
do a
additional
sponsorship for
above.
primary children. I said, well, how did it go? And she said, well, your brother got me into the head dude. And so she spent 2.5 hours with them.
Oh, good.
And they're considering kicking in on primary.
That's good.
Property tax.
Yeah.
I was in Atlanta last week too, so.
Have you been to the Chick-fil-A headquarters? I guess it's
No.
got quite the kitchen.
They actually did the event that I was at, was at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Holy cow, talk about just a crazy facility.
We'll continue to have this
Um,
problem as long as they don't have the guts to say no to every single thing that everybody wants to do.
Yeah, it does good job as well.
Just my opinion.
In terms of just how wide
We haven't,
other different hallways are and.
Is it covered?
Yeah, well, and it retracts too. It's fully retractable.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, yeah. I can't remember we went on this whole tour and then I think it takes 48 minutes for it to fully retract, or 47 minutes to fully retract, 49 or vice versa, to come back together. So, yeah.
We were up at a baseball game in Seattle and it started to rain. And so the roof started to retract. And I'm not kidding you, as that closed, every single hot dog wrapper that had not been tied in was flying. It was like a little mini hot
Tornado.
dog wrapper tornado.
It's fun.
Okay, Council, you ready?
One example.
No. Diane, are you ready to join us?
Hello, I'm Diane Wilson. Happy to be here with you, and I guess we'll just jump in.
Yeah.
It certainly has been a pleasure to work with you in the past, and I look forward to that possibility. So our first question, based on what you know about city government, what do you see as top priorities for Roy City and why? And I think for any city and almost any time, but especially now, the budget and revenue are absolutely key factors. And part of that revenue is key because we have essential services that must be provided to our citizens. But as part of that, we need employees to provide those citizens. And so I don't know I think that these are about the same. I don't know that one can be above the other because employee retention, I think, is also right up there with the revenue, and they go hand in hand and are very critical. So I believe that those two items, when they're prioritized and worked with, the rest kind of falls under it and becomes easier to work with. Although none of that is easy, it's very difficult. I believe that's where the focus needs to be to try to continue that balance and increasing those revenues, which right now we're certainly having that difficult time in our economy, and especially the construction with 3,500 coming up around the corner, 5,600 south right in the middle. That's definitely taken some of our revenue. Certainly understanding that, knowing what cost the city will incur in addition to UDOT is important, but that also has affected our revenue with the loss of homes, the loss of businesses. And so trying to balance and circumvent that is very important. We have also a focus across the state for housing issues, and certainly Roy City has stepped up to the plate many times and has changed zoning for that. But with that comes another big concern, and that is community cohesiveness. Roy City is really noted across our county and other counties for the natural community cohesiveness that we have. And I think we're working really hard to continue fostering that. But when we have higher density, that increases a higher turnover. And so even just averages on some of those apartments, just down 4,000, 9 months is the average time there. And so for us to keep that community feeling that we have, we will need to work very hard. And it won't just be the city council, we'll be engaging our citizens and residents to be able to increase that community cohesiveness. And certainly the citizens have been wanting another cemetery for a long time. And it will be interesting to know, if that can be achieved or not, but certainly something to still continue considering. In regard to the second question, in lieu of the city's tight budget constraints, would you support proposed property tax increase or be more inclined to reduce services should sales tax revenues lag, and why? Well, we certainly know that if sales tax revenues are decreasing, that means our citizens are struggling. And that means our citizens are having to tighten their belts. And if that's the case, the city must tighten their belt as well. And so I believe that has to be the first priority, but we do have essential services that we must provide. And if all the tightening in the world is done, sometimes we do have to have a sales tax, but make it as modest as possible. And as we consider those budgets, we need to also keep in mind some expenses are ongoing expenses. Some are one-time expenses. And so we want to do everything we can to save as much money as we can, as per allowed by law, to help us through those tough times, because we have had times and moments of a little bit extra flush, so to speak. So if we do that very responsibly, I think that's important. And then I think we need to be careful that we don't sell our soul, so to speak, by using money, one-time money, for budgetary constraints that are ongoing, because then we get ourselves into a hole. And so I believe that balance of one-time expenses and ongoing expenses must be balanced carefully, and that we use the right pot for that. So we certainly need to tighten our belts and do that very respectfully. And then at the very end, if we have to, do the smallest tax increase possible. So budget is an ongoing concern and problem. We have a submitted budget, a proposed budget, and it's a ongoing issue. It's not just a one and done sort of thing. But as we look ahead and we keep following, I think that will help us. We luckily have excellent city staff that are very good at keeping our budget in line and making it balanced. So relying on their expertise is also very helpful. The third question, how would you actively engage residents in the decision-making process and ensure their voices are heard on important city issues? Number one is listen. That is so absolutely important. And then follow through with them, communicate. If they bring up something, get back with them. Don't just let it go, take it in. Make sure you let them know that you have heard what they said. And that may well be, phone calls, emails. We have other resources, but I think the more direct we have in our response to citizens, it's the best. We have social media that helps with notification, but I don't believe that's still the number one way to respond to our residents. And sometimes that means making personal visit. That might mean walking a street. If there's an area that's coming up, go and visit those people, ask their opinions. When we have zoning issues, I think it's important to talk to those people individually that live there and the people that are asking for the zoning. Look at both sides. Engaging them personally is so important. I think encouraging town halls is a very good way to do that, because that way we can get the word out to a larger area and have it be focused for the area that the issues really specifically involve. And it allows communication amongst the residents, and it also allows us to inform and educate residents, because some of the hardest thing is everyone's busy. Everyone's just trying to make it through life. And so they have to prioritize their life. And so if you can help them prioritize by giving them an easier way to educate them, help them understand, and then listen to them, I think that it serves the citizens as well as ourselves. Presently, as well as in the future. I think those are very important tools to use. The fourth question, how do you plan to work effectively with other council members, city staff, and community organizations to achieve shared goals? I think the number one thing is making community service a priority. That covers all of those areas. Community service was a very big part of my life growing up. My father spent 24 years on the planning commission, city council, and mayor. And it was a priority. It was a given that community service was prioritized over self. Only family and religion has a higher calling, in my opinion, because those three things, family, religion, and city, are the foundation and bond that hold our society together. This is how I govern and prioritize my time, my resources, and my energy. And so with that being said, we go back to listening. We go back to meeting with the staff. How important it is for us to meet with the staff. They understand what's going on. They live it. They work with it day in and day out. Respect for our other council members, for our citizens, for the other organizations. Research and working hard is absolutely imperative. We must be prepared. We have meetings, we have citizens that will be talking to us. Being prepared for those interactions is so important. Being a team player is key. I think trying to achieve consensus is important. Now, that may not always happen, but as we educate and talk with each other, there's a better chance that that might happen, that we can work together as a team. Stay up to date on what's going on. Be positive. I think that's one of the most important things we as a city council can do. We'll always have difficult times in the city, but if we can stay positive, it gets through the situation better. It helps our citizens and it brings the entire city level up, because if we approach things from a positive standpoint, we'll be much more productive and we'll have better solutions. Don't try to reorganize or recreate services that another organization is already doing. That's why I think it's so important for us to team up with other organizations, see what they can offer, try to work with them. The citizens have essential services, which the city needs to provide, but sometimes we have a few extra bonuses. And right now we've been very blessed to have a few bonus things. We have exceptional parks. We have a exceptional complex, which we've been able to do. These are all important things that increase that community cohesiveness that we've talked about, that not all other cities have. And I think as we foster that and bring in other organizations to help us, if it can be done, then I believe that all works together to have goals that will be accomplished and be benefit to our city and our citizens. The fifth question, how do you weigh different viewpoints when making complex decisions, especially when there is no clear consensus? Again, I go to research. Research and hard work, absolutely important, because you won't understand the viewpoints unless you've done a lot of research. And even then, there's a good chance you'll miss some of them. There's no such thing as two sides to an issue. There's so many more sides than that. And as you do that research, you'll be able to get a perspective. What are the perspectives that the city has, that the businesses have, that the citizens have, that other organizations, our future? All of this is very important. And as we do that research, we'll be listening, we'll be collecting data. As we collect data, it will help things fall into place. We need to access resources. One of the most important resources we have are our city staff. They can give us absolutely critical information that would be very difficult to get in any way. We still are responsible for the decisions. We need to access other people. For example, the state has the property ombudsman, which we can resource. There are other resources that we can research, but I believe that as we research, or as we talk to other cities and their council members and what they've tried, that gives us information. It helps weigh what has already been tried, because one of the most important things we need to do as we are coming up with a decision is to try to anticipate the unintended consequences of every decision we make. It's so frustrating when you think you've made an absolutely beautiful decision and there is a blatant unintended consequence that throws a kink into everything. Now, of course, we'll never be able to understand what those will be. We won't get them all, but I think the more we work towards that and look at it from that angle, don't look at just what you want to accomplish, but look at what could happen if it's done a certain way, because things don't have a tendency to do work just the way you want them to, just the way you hope they will. So try to look at it from that other angle. And then understanding what the long-term impact can be of those different viewpoints and what those decisions. I think all of that adds together to be a very important way to weigh those viewpoints and bring it together. So then you individually can feel good about the decision you make as a council member. And as we do it as a team, oftentimes another team member will have an idea or a viewpoint that we may not see. And that's what's so important about our meetings. We have work sessions that are so important to get those perspectives. We have just a discussion within a city council, which allows us to have that interchange of ideas. And certainly there will still be issues that won't have a clear consensus, but I do believe with all of that work, those will be fewer than we realize, and we will be able to come to a consensus or a decision a little more often than we think. So I believe that being a member of the city council is so critical, because the reality is we are affecting individual lives with every decision we make. We are making local government create benefits or disadvantages for our local people. Our decisions affect every day. We talked about, our previous interviewer talked about traffic. Every decision affects everyone. And so as we do that and are willing to help, willing to jump in, and I am definitely willing to hit the ground running, I think that all puts into effect an excellent team. And the city council having a variety of perspectives, experiences adds to that and successful decisions. So thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing me to apply. And thank you for your work and your efforts, the staff as well as the council. So thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Hey.
Good thing you got a wife or a doctor. Huh? Good thing you got a wife or a doctor.
Council, we have just a few minutes before our next interview.
We still got goldfish.
Oh, yeah, do I need to throw my snacks? Let's see.
Yeah, Let's see if it's as good as mine.
All right, here we go, here we go. So you have, these are fantastic. If you need just like a quick boost. Those are nice.
Honey Steamer.
Honey Steamer. I made with like 100% here, but what can I say? Is imported from Denmark. Apple cinnamon raw bite, fantastic. Let's see. I've got some raspberry, and strawberry fruit snacks. Let's see. Do I have Biscoff cookies for my Delta? Ooh, yes. I have Delta Biscoff cookies. Delta Biscoff cookies going once, going twice. There you go. This is just in case I get stuck in an airport.
Where's your M&Ms and Snickers? Where's the good stuff?
I'm sorry.
You want fruit for heck's sake?
Good.
If I
No one
wanted
wants your fruit, Leathers.
I'd walk
You want-
through an orchard.
I have a banana.
You got a banana?
Anyone wants
Oh,
banana?
man, I'm sorry.
Ah. Yeah. See, it's just, you're doing the same thing, and I'm just going through and reading.
Want energy?
Well, it's not like this.
About the what?
It's not like.
Just write down the key words in case
Yep.
they wonder where I
And I,
got my point from.
And
Does that make sense?
oh, 100%. That's the other thing too, is you can always go back online, because again, we'll have roughly timestamp.
So he wants local
To
government to
go
fix
back to the YouTube, you can have it transcribe it and be like, okay.
Well, and I was gonna record it, but I'm not sure.
They're recording it there, and then it's recorded out to Zoom and it's recorded out to YouTube. So it's being recorded everywhere.
Ready to assume?
Yes.
Perfect.
Do I go here, there?
Just have a seat. It's open. You're early. So we're
Okay.
kind of ahead of a schedule. So I think a couple people just stepped out to use the restroom and stuff. So.
May perceive the mayor.
Respond.
We're doing that.
Nine.
How do we record and see?
We got
We can hear this.
Jeremy Thompson, Samantha Bills.
It picks up very good.
Just don't say his name.
Got one C.
Mhm.
Of course, it doesn't mean they can't
Well,
seek the office in
correct.
2 years.
Or it's a year.
A
Really,
year
it's only a
now,
year.
yeah.
Wow. Because that's the thing is, in the next cycle, there'll be 2 4-term. It's one 2-year term.
I don't know. Yeah.
Mine and
Oh,
Sophie,
that's right.
mine and Sophie seats come up. Those are for
Plus-
this one.
Plus the mayor seat.
And yeah, as I say, so there's actually,
Holy Hannah.
there's 4 open slots for city government this next cycle.
I'm gonna have to straighten out.
Right, likewise.
I'm gonna have to
Likewise.
fly like a, you know,
Straight and narrow.
Sweet lady.
Or something in your monster now.
saw the Christmas lights when I came.
Yes, yes. When is that's, when are the Christmas, when do we turn the Christmas lights on? When's our tree layer?
Monday before Thanksgiving.
I thought you were.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, I think we're what, like the 24th or something?
They were all on when I showed up this morning.
Yeah, you'll start to see them a lot in the mornings and at nighttime when they do their testing and stuff like that while they're putting them all up, but.
Do I have to go slap my eyes? Like, what the crap? What are you doing?
That's usually where your beef lies, Kevin, is with the higher
I
up.
mean, on Facebook, I told Mike I liked something that he did the other day.
Oh.
I actually did. Yeah, his support for the women's volleyball team up at USU. But,
Go.
oh, it's None of us agree on everything all of the time.
No.
I don't expect it.
I'm just teasing.
But I'm a lot more confident in
The idea that went out.
the mayor's tie vote than I am a coin.
It's a very interesting statute.
What's that?
It's a very interesting statute.
For like the flame?
Referring
We're
to,
being recorded, yeah.
I didn't see it. We're not wrong. No, I think I sent it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, indicated that they had a team that was coming out and felt that they can get the.
Oh, so we're not.
Yeah. But if they needed us, it was going to be, they would contact us. But for us, we have 100 businesses and homes they have not indicated their interest, and so we're kind of waiting on those, so. Braden, if it's okay with you, how about if we start at 9:30? Will that be okay? Give you a chance to look over those questions? Perfect.
Randy,
What?
where's my hard drive?
Did you, I told, I'm gonna get 10 gig internet. I'm gonna need that now. I gotta do something with that speed. So you might get one for Christmas, though. Did you do anything, did you get anything off the Amazon Big Deal sale? Cause I almost sent you, there was like a 20 or a 24 terabyte for like $190. I was like,
Matt Rand,
I'm actually okay right now.
are you good now?
On my hard drive.
Rand,
Okay.
But again, it's like, you can never have too much money.
true.
You can never have too much ammo,
It's true.
and you can never have too much hard drive
It's
space.
very true. It's a very true statement. So. And that's all on the public record now. Thanks, Kevin.
It is now.
You know me, I
Hey,
don't really care if people know
likewise.
what I think.
Likewise.
I prefer it that way. I'll let you know.
Okay.
it's a fun group.
Yes.
Gonna have a hot tamale.
Well, as long as they keep giving those swish things that you're giving out,
As
and
many as you want.
Anna's throwing out her cookies.
Anne's got cookies.
Right, just rip the whole thing open.
Commercial
If you want.
product placement here.
Yes. This Vacant City Council meeting is sponsored by Anne's Cookies.
Coca-Cola and Adidas.
Yep. You're like the Hill Center Theater guy.
And by the way, I do like their plays.
Oh, no, we have season tickets and it's like one of the best things. We go to next weekend, we go see Adam's Family.
Oh, that'll be good.
Yeah, yeah. So they do that, this will be our second time seeing it.
Take us on
First time, it's
sale,
fantastic.
the severe stuff and all. We want that, so we wanted.
And then we just saw, it was a weird one. It was more one of the I don't want to say it was I still don't know if I like it or not. It was very, very well put together, but it was the elephant something. I don't know. I'd never heard of it. It was an interesting one. Where basically somebody wished for an elephant and they got an elephant, or an elephant showed up. I can't even remember, but it was one of those one-off ones. And then Beauty and the Beast is coming up, and a guy that I actually grew up with doing plays at Terrace Plaza Playhouse with is actually the Beast in it. He's actually been leading quite a few of their shows up there, so that'll be fun if I can. I don't think the show that we're seeing actually has the Beast. So, but no, as I say, huge fan of it. So,
Randy, who's your buddy that's up there?
Kyle Olson.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, Beverly Terrace, it's a good thing.
yeah, no, they're
It's
actually,
horrible, but the rest of it is really good. It's a good thing.
yeah, no, they're actually in the process right now of building an academy, in fact, they asked that I Because again, I was there like 33 years ago. I spent a lot of my formative years, when I say formative years, my teenage years, acting at Terrace Plaza Playhouse. So
Good for you.
thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, so they're actually doing a gala on Thursday night, and they asked me to say a few words as far as what Terrace Plaza Playhouse has meant to me. And
I got accepted, when I was 18 to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts West in Pasadena
really,
by Jimmy Stewart and
Wow.
Jim Backus.
wow.
True story.
See, I went up all through like ninth grade. Ninth grade, I was like, I'm gonna be an actor, but then I have a face for radio, so I was like, let's just go into technology because that's more of a given.
It's a good compromise.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
So Brian, have you anybody gone and tried that new, the old Lucky China restaurant? Have you gone
Oh,
there?
Oh, Coos? Is that how you pronounce it?
How many times?
Five.
He's been there
Oh,
over
he likes it then.
He likes sushi.
He loves sushi.
Yeah.
And they've got a service robot.
Really? Oh, yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that.
I'm just
makes
glad
the
that
sushi.
KFC's
That
open.
brings the.
Brings it out.
It's
So you
quite
just
the
gotta think
deal.
about
You know,
orders.
try it out.
Right, right.
Like I said, they've got a location in Sandy as
Yeah,
well
I
that
heard
does
that it was like-
really well.
I have to go try it out. I like sushi too. But they have other stuff besides sushi, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They have a full menu. Well, a
Sushi
full,
and ramen.
Yeah.
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 On the
You go there,
menu.
Kevin?
No, but I'm really anxious to get there and try it out.
Yeah, me too.
They'd be glad to have you.
I'd love to go there. I'm a big fan of sushi and ramen.
Braden, let me share just a couple of pieces of information with you. Okay. This part of the process is just the interviewing process, okay? From this, the city council members in between this particular meeting and the 5:30 city council meeting tonight, they're gonna go ahead and hopefully make their decision in terms of the candidate. The formal process will be tonight at 5:30. We encourage all the applicants to join us in the city council meeting. It'll just be upstairs. We will go for a vote. And then based on the outcome of the vote, okay, our intent would be is to select the city council member, okay, who will be joining us for the next 14 months. We've asked the city recorder, and she will go ahead and swear them into the office tonight. That's our game plan, okay? So certainly encourage, okay, if you can, join us, okay, tonight as we go through that final process. This is just to get each of the city council members to a decision, and then they formally make the decision tonight, okay? So, but anytime you're ready, please join us at the chair, and you have questions with you, and there's certainly the same questions sitting in front of you. You can start with question number 1 when you're ready.
Can I just answer it?
You can read it. You can read and answer whatever you like.
Okay, so it says, based on what you know about city government, what do you see as top priorities for Roy City and why? Well, I've lived here my whole life, so I think the top priorities for Roy City is just what I've come to know of it is just a really good place to live. I just think, it should be a place where people feel comfortable to, go on a run, on a bike ride, go to the park, feel good, be proud to live in Roy City, because I feel like I am. And I want people who live here to feel that way and people in surrounding areas to feel that way, not feel like it's a really great city to live in. I also feel like a priority is innovation, because obviously I'm pretty young. And so I'm like applying for this position because I want to, one, get experience, and just bring new ideas and new perspective on what it's like to be a 22-year-old living here. And just make it so other people my age, maybe people a little bit older than me are starting families and stuff, and older people any age to be comfortable living in Roy.
Yeah, yeah, we can't like ask you any questions after, you just have to go through the
Oh,
questions,
okay.
sorry,
Sounds
we'll
good.
get that down.
In lieu of the city's tight budget constraints, would you support proposed property tax increase, or be more inclined to reduce services should sales tax revenues lag? Why? So this question is probably the one I'm least versed in, because I'm not a homeowner. But from what I gather from, the house I live in, that, the property taxes are already a little bit high. And I've always thought it'd be great for Roy to have more services and more businesses here. But like I said in the last question, priority is to make people feel comfortable to live here and afford to live here. So if it's one or the other, I would probably not support property tax increase, but like, I'm not exactly sure. Like, I would have to, see more numbers and be more well versed in how that would work. How would you actively engage residents in the decision-making process and ensure their voices are heard on important city issues? This is a good one. First and foremost, I would just make it so that residents of the city know that they can put their voice in these processes, whatever they may be. From my experience, I'm working at Roy High right now as a college advisor, and the best way to get in contact with not only students, but also parents is just, well, for one, they a lot of times don't know a lot of stuff that you think they would know. Like, I would assume that a lot of people don't know that they can help in a decision-making process in Roy City, or some people don't know that, like, how to vote. Some people don't know how certain stuff works. But from my experience, in order to inform students and parents on stuff like that, for a lot of stuff, social media is a really good way to let people know of things that are happening. And I just think like events, I guess it's dependent on what this process is, but just to know what like, if it's a specific decision-making process, we could have an event to like let residents know, hey, come here for this thing, but when you're there, you'd know now that you can vote on this, or you can put your voice in on this, put your opinion on that. Yeah, that's what I got there. For question 4, how do you plan to work effectively with other council members, city staff, and community organizations to achieve shared goals? So I've had a lot of jobs recently. So I've worked, I work at Roy High right now, working with counselors a lot, but it's kind of a external role. So I also work with other college advisors from other schools. So there's a lot of like moving parts in communication, which I think would be similar here. Counselors, other advisors, my bosses at Utah College Advising Corps, teachers, admin, college reps from other schools. There's just a lot of like moving parts. And I think I think working in that has helped me kind of know what everyone needs and kind of schedule things, and know if there's any concerns and how I can fix that. I've also worked in a city before. I worked for Clearfield City just as a parks specialist, I believe it was called. And in that job, I worked in like a really small crew, but as well with a lot of moving parts. Like, we would interact with their city council, I believe. We'd interact with like public works. And so I think working in jobs like that, I've learned to manage different perspectives and different roles, and then communicate how our role works depending on the job. So like with the parks one, communicate what the parks specialists needed, what they were doing, how you're getting stuff done. And so I just think, how do I plan to do it? I would just take in all ideas and listen to, and this is kind of for question 5 as well, but take in all viewpoints and keep my own viewpoint, but as well take in what other people are thinking and use that to kind of not change, but mold where I'm looking on certain decisions and goals. And so for question 5, how do you weigh different viewpoints when making complex decisions, especially when there's no clear consensus? It's kind of where I was going to go with that, but I've also not worked in, but I went on a trip to DC for school, and I proposed a healthcare policy to, I think it was like 10 offices, both Democrats and Republicans. And so I think working with that, I've kind of learned how to communicate what my goals are for that situation, what that policy's goals were, and take back any input from each side and how we could work together to achieve something that everyone, like, or most people would agree with or would help the most amount of people. And so I think in this role, like I kind of said, it would be a similar situation where I have the goal that I want. That's why I want to be like on that seat, but that doesn't mean that like what my priorities are can't be influenced or molded a little bit.
Okay. Right. Appreciate you coming and joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Tonight at 5:30 if you can make it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, we have a few minutes. If you'd like to just take a little bit of a break, you're certainly welcome to do that.
I'm gonna take some time for goldfish.
Do it.
You need to share those with Sophie.
Get DoorDash here in a minute.
Right?
Goldfish, be ordering some food and just. Wait, we have to 10:15.
Well, let's eat Joseph early.
Next meeting is at 10:15.
Yeah.
I don't.
It's now
Yeah.
20 minutes, it's 9:40, so you've got a long time. You have about 20 minutes when our next start. And if Jeremy's here, I'll try to get him started here at 10 o'clock.
We can step out in the hall so we don't put anything on the public record.
Just one little favor.
Absolutely.
With some of these, with us moving about a half an hour earlier, could you just, by convenience, maybe you can send a text to the 4 remaining, from Samantha down to Janelle, and just indicate we're ahead of schedule. If they'd like to arrive a little bit ahead of schedule, we might be able to work them in.
Yeah, let me go grab their sheets and I can do that.
You don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we talked about you a couple of times while we were up there fishing.
Sada,
Yeah.
he bought my hamburger for me the last game. Well, I was standing next to him and his wife and I said to the person, I can't remember who was waiting on us. And anyway, I said, oh, I went to school with her. She goes, don't tell him you're my age because I look 90 years older than you. I said, oh, shut up. We always called her Buns because her name was Sharon Robbins. And that was her nickname all through school was Buns. She's funny. She's funny. It's like always just like I'd see her in the store and I know she'd see me and she'd pretend she wouldn't. And so I'd always make it a point to go up and say, Sharon. She'd go, oh, hi, didn't see you. Like, yeah, right. She just is funny that way, you know. But I'm really glad that she found this guy because I mean, I knew her first husband. They dated in high school, Alan. He just was, you know, not a good person and not a good father to her children. And so it seems like a great guy. So we are at the snack bar, I just wanted a hamburger, fries or anything. And people, "Wouldn't we pay for that?" I said, "I pay for my own hamburger." He goes, "No," and they just bought drinks, they ate before they came, but he's like, "I'm just getting ready to go fishing with Bob, we're gonna get you some fish." I said, "Well, good, cause I love trout," and so. But, yeah. He's really a nice guy,
I like
so.
him. Yeah.
Is he, I know is he LDS?
I can't speak to the religion piece, but he loves to fish and I will tell you, we hit it hard. We fish strong, really 4 days.
Did you go in a boat or you fish from the?
No, they're in a float, they're in a like pontoon boat. They like big pontoons, but me and Jay were actually in his boat. And so we hit that really hard and he caught a nice one. He caught a 6-pound, what I call a cut bow. And but I could not hook a fish. And in the years previous to that, as you've seen, because I've delivered fish to your house, we were very successful, but this one was just not a very successful fishing trip.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know when my son went to Grade River, it wasn't as good a fishing up there neither. My brother Ralph went 3 times. He said it was better the very last time he went,
Yeah.
but,
As the weather starts to cool down, we'll see the experience being much better, but I enjoy going up there, that particular place. But I think if we'd have gone up there maybe 2 or 3 weeks later than we did, we probably would have seen a much better
and
result.
can you go, is that the place you go ice fishing to?
Yeah.
Or the Chesterfield?
Well,
That's-
Chesterfield's up that direction.
Okay, that's where my brother goes ice fishing every year.
Yeah,
but,
we're a little bit north of there, obviously, but it's certainly one of the places you could. It's just that it's.
Are you an ice fisherman? Do you do that?
I've done it, but to be honest with you, I'm not very good at it.
Yeah.
You have to have really all the gear.
Yeah, my 2 brothers, they have all that stuff, all the drills, all the tents, everything, and they're way into it. Well, they love that ice fishing. I would be so nervous to go out on ice from here. I can't think of anything worse than, I mean, they're real careful. They're not, we know how thick it has to be, but people drive their trucks on it and everything. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not willing to do that.
me neither. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because when I just got back from Disneyland and that flying over the world, that, and it shows the polar ice, and all that, and I'm like, man, this is made so many years ago, they need to go back. I bet there's hardly any of that polar ice anymore. They all melted. So it's just.
Seen some changes.
People that don't think we have climate change, I'm like, oh my gosh. That Asheville, that city in Florida, my daughter had been there the summer before at the exact same time. I said, why would you pick somewhere like that? Her friend's way into nature and it's so beautiful and they did all these hikes and I just couldn't believe it. So it showed a lady on the news who was a climatologist way into climate change and everything, and she had lived in Georgia, I think. Anyway, she wanted to go somewhere she thought would just be the safest place, that they would never have any, hurricanes or anything, because that was such an unusual place. And she goes, man, I've just changed my mind. I mean, her house didn't get destroyed, but it just showed the town. It's just so devastating. Just in New Mexico, they had that 2 people died. And we have a really good friend who was in Florida that sat through the hurricane, boarded up his house, got a generator, put metal all over everything. Everything that destroyed was his hands. But I just don't think I could live somewhere where they have that threat. I mean, we have the threat of an earthquake one day, but that's not a reoccurring thing. If you're gonna get a tornado every year or a hurricane every year, I'm like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I can't believe that people would rebuild and then they get swiped out again and then they get rebuild and just.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. And certainly, as you just indicated, The flooding happened in New Mexico over the last few days. Certainly Florida's been hit now twice with a
Yes.
hurricane.
And then the heat, like
And then the heat.
Arizona, I mean, it's record-breaking heat down there. And then my friend that lives in St. George, and don't you have friends that live in St. George? And she just has been dying that the heat down there. I'm like, ah, Arizona's just been horrible. Texas.
Been a wild year.
I mean, when we left, I mean, it was in this high seventies. When we got off the plane on Friday, I was like, oh my gosh, it's cold, because Friday is, but it felt good. And at Disneyland, it was, you know, it was in the high sixties, low seventies, so it was perfect weather. It got warm after we left, but it was perfect weather for us. But yeah, I just hope we get a lot of snow this year and just stay in the mountains.
And stay in the mountains.
Yeah, I think I used my snow blower twice last year.
Yep.
And that was it, but
Well, like I said, they finally installed.
it snowed a lot. It seems to always happen on a Sunday for some reason.
Yeah.
So-
but at least there's hope.
Well, and I've got everything in place and
No.
even at light speed. Cause it was kind of funny, I did a speed test and all of a sudden it's only capping out at 2.5 gig. I'm like, what the crap? Cause I showed 10 gig here, 10 gig on my desktop. And then
Our
when I
drug
looked
guy
at the
comes
in
and
between,
does drug reps.
I'd only plugged into the 2.5 gig.
Drug testing. He's been coming every Wednesday, and then I'm in Disneyland and he always texts me.
That's for your land.
Yes.
for your land.
Yes, but I will have 10 gig.
I'm on my way. It's fun
Or
to text
when I was-
everybody.
I
I'm
was
like,
going
I'm
back
in
and forth.
Disneyland, so. And so he just texted again, right in between meetings, thank heavens. He said, I'm just leaving Bonneville. So I had to text Jake Schultz and Natalie and say, hey, the drug guy's on his way.
The Amazon Big Deal, they came out with their Hero Max 7s. I was able to pick up
Yeah,
4 of them.
he goes to all the schools in this area in Davis
That gives you
County, he does
Two
BYU, he
2.5 gig
does.
ports, two 10 gig ports
lots of
across
schools.
4 nodes.
He's a real nice
and they're
guy.
all
His
hardwired.
son, Mark
So
Archer,
I legit have
used to be
gig
like one of our
wireless
head
across my
guys at,
entire house.
the
And I have the
head
ability,
lifeguard,
you
Mark
know,
Archer.
long-term wise to.
I mean, his
it's
son
pretty much
Archer,
featured. I don't have
the
anything
kid
with
that
Wi-Fi 7.
worked for the
Yeah.
city for
So
years.
at best, I'm gonna
He
get,
worked down at the Aquatic Center too, and then he,
but, I'm future
Well,
proof.
for your land, it sounds like
Oh,
you've got
yeah.
really.
Oh, yeah, it's,
On mine, I'm just still gigabit
oh, yeah, well, and that, yeah.
throughout the house.
he's a really a great guy.
For-
I have him
yeah.
in my
It works.
contact list, drug guy, Mark.
I'd love to bump it up to 10.
So,
I would even see.
It costs more money than I want to put into that right now.
It's actually not. I was looking at because I can get most of all my
It's right in the
gear
counseling center
connected just
where my daughter
across
works.
everything.
yeah, he took over
But
her
to get
desk
like an
and
8
she got
or
to move
10
back in the
switch is
corner where
probably
she
like
had more privacy and wasn't being
Well, I built a little server
interfered
rack
with all the time.
that I keep in my computer room that has all of my hardware right in it. It's a 16, I think it's a 16
You are.
Okay.
server rack.
So it's like one of those little.
It's an awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, sits about,
Yeah. So yeah, it's just one of those little telecom ones. Yeah. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
but the server components for everything that I
Yeah.
got in there and it
Yeah.
makes it pretty nice.
Yeah. No, that's I keep going back and forth. I'm trying to figure out if I did that where I put.
Take us to go.
Yeah,
That's the
I
kicker.
tell you, it was fun.
Yes.
See, my brother.
Well, and then I'd be like, I'm like you though. I have 16 U's. I'd be like,
No,
My whole entire life.
I thought I would never max out 16,
No, well, that's the
but
thing.
I would go at least 20.
Would you? 20?
I-
Because that's
I
the thing, is
would.
they're like 6,
My
24.
daughter Heather,
They go in.
my daughter
80
Jennifer,
increments.
they're-
So,
but they're
I
all
would
Yankees
definitely get the
fans.
big one. Even
So,
if
I
you
mean, my
don't
daughter,
use some
she
of
always-
those
she gets to the game,
spaces,
the whole
you
season.
got them if you
She
want.
watches the
yes, no, that's the thing. And, but
Watched
that's
the
where it's
last
like,
two
where
games,
it's not gonna make a
She-
white well.
surgery on.
Always
So I've
take
been
up
hanging out with her.
space, you know.
It's kind of fun though.
I know. I'm like,
The old rivalry back in the eighties was the last time the Yankees and the Dodgers played.
81.
Yeah, so my brother Robert,
I just got sick.
he's gonna
Yeah,
try
I
to
wish
go
I
to a
had
few
more.
games. But I think he'll
It's one of
maybe
the-
try to go,
okay.
you know, to the Dodgers.
12 by 12
Because
bed.
it's-
Got
Two over series game.
My entire computer space.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Out of storage.
Okay, yeah.
I.
Well, that's around, they have something like that. That's, okay. Yeah.
I've been to
Yeah, you,
full
that's, We got something like
The
that.
room is full.
Baseball, the people are so social.
But I have
Like
vertical
sitting
seats, so that's why I
Right.
say, I would go taller, go all the way to the ceiling. and go up.
Mhm.
Contest
Yeah.
between the pitcher and the batter.
That's the thing. is
Yeah,
Once you
I
get that, then
remember
you're
when
like,
I
oh,
was
I've
in
got
high
to get
school,
everything
right
so
on,
it fits into my.
they had a TV in the lunchroom, they'd have the World Series
That's
on.
not a bad.
No, no, it's
I
not.
mean,
You could
I
watch it.
love. being
In the
organized.
classrooms, they'd
Agreed.
have,
Oh,
a
really?
TV on a
Just my
stand, a
shirt.
19-inch
Yep.
black and white,
Likewise.
shows my age. So,
I did not.
yeah, we all were into the.
Yeah, I was a hiring manager for a lot of years, and I've done a lot of interviews, and gone over a lot of resumes.
I've got, at my house, I have the baseball room,
Uh-huh.
and just
Sat through a
last
monologue.
last birthday.
It's always
my dog
interactive and
was a
multiple
huge
people asking
Yankees
questions.
fan.
Not a fan of this.
Mickey Mantle autographed pitcher.
Oh, wow.
Truly.
Yeah, Mickey Mantle. That, I mean, last time I was a Yankees fan until now, because I've been watching with my daughter, it's when Derek Jeter and Rodriguez and Jorge and all those players, I was way into that team. And then once they all retired, and I'm like, I don't even know anybody, but now I'm learning the names. I mean, I knew Aaron Judge, but,
Yeah.
but now it's been fun to kind of get back into it again and World Series is fun. I just hope
I think it's gonna go 7. I really do.
Yeah,
See,
I
both
hope-
sides are loaded.
Yeah.
Just because of the election.
So,
Yeah,
but-
So we're not.
And I'm sure Major League Baseball's tickled to have LA and New York.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's too bad it couldn't have been in the city and cool. It's quite expensive. Both of them, they're gonna rake everybody for every penny they can get out of them. You know,
And have you seen the new stadium out at daybreak? Oh, wow, it's beautiful.
Oh, where the bees are gonna play?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate that it's out that much farther though. It's much farther. to
Yeah, it is
drive.
a drive.
I just hope they keep the other stadium and use it for something else instead of tearing it down. Putting up apartments or something. But, yeah. I'm just more into football than I am into baseball, but I do love the World Series.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to me as a kid, but it was always baseball.
Well, my brothers played baseball, but they both played football, 2 of them for Roy High and stuff. But when I married my husband, I had to be a Raiders fan, so. And that's hard to be a Raiders fan. I mean, my husband watched them beat the Vikings in 1976 in the Super Bowl.
That's right. Very good, Ann.
Pasadena, I have the ticket stub from that game. It was $25. Is on the ticket. Yeah, that was in 1977, 76, 77. My brother that lives in California is a US Treasury agent, and he was investigating a ticket scalper. So he got him tickets. And so my dad and my brother and 2 of my sons, that's his friends, who were Vikings fans, they all went down and got to watch the Raiders beat the Vikings. That's when John Madden was the coach, and that's when half of our players were criminals and we could really play football.
See, we don't want that on the public record.
Yeah, as I say, whoa, yeah. And
Yeah, that's when it was, that's when now.
that trumps what we were talking about, so.
You can't hardly hit.
That was
anybody
Ann.
in football anymore, which is good, because a lot of them affected their whole lives from all the concussions and stuff. So this must be. This ain't- Well, you look at me.
I think when I went to the series, my ticket was 400,
There you go.
probably 3 years ago.
That's about right.
I think it was about 4. Upper field level.
Well, if there's not gonna be pizza, I don't know if I'm gonna make it
Yeah.
all the way to 1 o'clock.
I was like, I thought this was a catered event. Wait, somebody said they're gonna DoorDash.
Have a cookie, you can have.
Yeah.
I know at work, we eat lunch at 11 every day. Well, I still got an hour to go until I'm really hungry.
Until I start to get
It's
hangry.
so funny because you get to work at 7:30 and then we're all hungry by 11, so. Disneyland, we just ate like every half hour, so.
Sophie, if you got DoorDash coming, maybe you can order like Domino's or something.
Ew, no pizza.
Oh, oh. That's sad.
You're not a pizza eater? Oh, I could eat pizza every day. Any kind, I'm not picky.
It's all great. Be here.
Are you in town for a while?
2 weeks and then I'm back out to Florida. And then I come back from Florida and then I go to California. And then I'm home for 2 weeks and then I'm back out to Florida. Yeah. So, good times, good times.
Do you like what you do?
I do, I honestly do.
That's good.
Yes, like this next go round, it's like a week-long conference, so I get in Monday and come home Saturday. I have 3 breakout, panel discussions, 45 minutes in length, and it's gonna be hard not to repeat the same content across all 3, so I,
Right.
you know, have to think that far ahead. And then the one in, I mean, it's rough. I have to go to Orlando and then to Newport Beach. So, you know,
Hopefully by then the damage, then it hit up.
well, I was supposed to be in Tampa the week of the hurricane that came through. I have quite a few like of my people that I work for one of my major accounts out there that just were completely and totally decimated by
Yeah.
well, it went Helene and then Milton in both.
Conversation
So
that took place between Bill Gibson and Brittany. I kind of avoided this conversation with others in the past because I don't control this room. But in light of the fact is that he did not move, his organization did not move quick enough to get access to the Hope Center for the Ogden Association of the Blind. They have an interest to see if they could use this room. Now,
Is it scheduled already?
honestly, this is kind of your decision, because I direct people to the Hope Center because that's the public facility. But I don't direct anybody to this room. So you just need to make a decision if you think that's okay or not. to ensure.
I mean, I'd be upstairs. but-
I always did, but
So,
But it's not, you know,
they wanted to be outside.
If.
just,
seeing is
it's just last resort. I'm like,
I sort
Oh,
of tell Phil, okay,
no,
But that's.
these rooms are available.
yeah, I'm like, yeah.
Annoying.
He specifically, when he found out the Hope Center was booked, he specifically asked for this room and. Let him know we appreciate it, the room of the building, this particular part of the building is not available for that kind of, that kind of room. So let me know what you want to do, or let Brittany know. I think Brittany has contact information with Bill too.
Yeah, we've let other people use it when it's during business hours and there's monitors and stuff here. It is difficult on a Saturday, just
I
because,
don't,
you know, the computers, you have the server.
you got everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we could, I think the best bet is just to say if somebody backs out of their obligation, or if there was somebody just booked just because they were putting it on the calendar or something like that, never paid or something.
But I've mentioned to people, places, employees, people use the Hope Center religiously through that December.
It's the business month.
Yeah.
Holidays, especially Saturdays, we get a lot of people that have family events over there.
Exactly. So, I feel bad that he didn't get in time, and I certainly couldn't control that part of it. His organization needed to control that. So
Yeah.
anyway, just decide what you want to do. And I certainly can reach out to Bill. Brittany has his contact information, either way you want to do it. But I just want you to know that I don't direct anybody to this room, okay? I just figure it's with the work business hours or whatever, I don't. So it really is your call, okay?
Oh,
But
sounds
I
good.
certainly can carry the message if you want me to.
Okay, perfect, fine.
Let me know.
Okay.
Well, Jeremy is. If he's not here in a few seconds, we may ask Jason if you'd like to step up. Jason, I have to give Jeremy his time. Okay.
Yeah, because he's at 10:15 or what's that? He's at 10:15?
Yeah, Thompson. I have to give him his time, but if he's not here on time, then I might just ask and see if Jason would like to take that time.
Once,
It was online.
they just questioned it.
That's
I did have.
especially Friday or happen.
Is it-
Won't be there because it was canceled, correct? And I said yes, and they're like, oh, why did they cancel it? And so then I gave the answer, and they're like, oh, that makes sense, perfect, I'll take it off the
Thursday,
calendar.
Thursday, October
Yeah,
4th.
so it wasn't anything.
Friday, do you guys have your?
Around the city.
That boards have one on October 30th.
To see this weekend.
In October.
Are you
Tons of
really?
them
And it's
around.
like
What day in
at
October?
the Kent's Market, the
It's
Kent's,
coming Friday.
What was that? I seen that. one.
Take
That's
Back Page.
CPC, huh?
well, it's the whole group. It's
Our granddaughter.
Kent's, and then all the businesses around it.
You're doing a trunk or treat thing?
It takes like,
Oh.
it takes on Saturday morning. It's packed.
We
That
just
parking
got-
lot is packed.
That's not the description.
Mhm. Yeah,
How
we
many
said when we're
now?
doing that. I'm like, we said, okay, we're doing this.
See it on
You're
TV.
handing out candy.
Nobody
Yeah,
cares.
she took
Like, we don't collect any.
12, I think it ain't even
Oh,
12.
thanks for the
Yeah.
Just don't mix those two
And I
up.
know you-
Yeah.
I'll trade you.
Yeah, there's some Halloween candy that were mixed up like,
Oh, yeah, a few years
There
ago.
was,
Those
uh,
nerd ropes.
yeah,
The
there's ropes.
homeless drive.
Families at that stage.
Yeah,
That was about,
it was-
Carl.
Because our daughter, she's seriously dating a primary children's doctor.
That was good to see.
Oh.
Yeah, whose was
Smith.
that? Kevin
Kevin
Smith?
Smith, yeah.
There's gonna be a lot of Saxtons the world's gonna have to
Good for
do.
you. That's good.
He said they were in June.
Yeah.
Hey, Jason, we do have Jeremy Thompson scheduled for 1:15, but I would assume Jeremy would have been here by now. Would you feel comfortable if he doesn't arrive at 10:15 to start yours a little bit early? Are you okay with that? Okay. We'll wait a few minutes, but
Even though these fish are colored, they all taste the same.
so
That's
same
good,
like
'cause I don't like
halibut,
red.
salmon.
I don't care if that's a matter of public record.
And the better let's see, does it have one of the colors that makes you hyperactive? Let's look. Pretty soon we're gonna have Brian
But the
bouncing off the
little
walls.
kids that don't eat 'em, they don't know.
Yeah.
They think they're all- Yes. I remember my grandkids would say.
And your Coke and your goldfish. I don't know, Brian. I don't know.
And buy them my bulk because they eat them. so much.
Oh, that's
The
the,
real,
yeah, the heavy hitter.
oh,
High octane.
trust me.
That's the premium unleaded, yeah.
I'll need it this week.
Yeah.
We got 4 minutes. Right? You're-
And they'll get like a cereal bowl to the top and then just tote that around.
What do you think about that new hockey team?
Well, we put in, well, my son.
Cheez-Its.
Yeah, I gotta be, they are.
Whatever they
They are, I gotta be careful.
Cheez-Its or two or something.
Right now, so. We put down the deposits for tickets. and My wife. She's like, what?
I like chicken and a biscuit, my favorite cracker.
I was like, if you don't wanna go anywhere. it's
Chicken and
the
biscuit.
restaurant.
My daughter, she had a.
We're done, we're not going, we're not going anywhere. That now becomes our,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
I understand.
Oh, yeah, cause
But
our,
I didn't think they could come out of the box, so.
I went down there.
yeah, no, they're actually doing really good.
And I've
Really good.
watched them play
Yeah.
on TV.
Yeah, for just a
And they're
first year club.
awfully quick.
Yeah.
Sunday with the people watching all this.
Those breakaway.
Oh,
She's on crutches. She put any weight on it for 3 days.
that is true.
And he unwrapped it, and they did an X-ray. And then he came in and he said that when he took off the bunion, the bone right there next to it. And he goes, it should have been fine. So I shaved a little bit of it and took it in for biopsy. And I said, well, what if it's cancer? Oh, I'll just go back in and take it all. I was thinking, well, he was taking out the early today. But he said, so no. But they put, rather than put a boot on her, he put this shoe thing on. You're just not responding to me. But it was really.
No.
Cement.
And there's a piece of paper for you, Samantha.
Are we gonna let Jason? About the plan?
Yeah.
He's-
He's had a chance to look over the question. So we'll. So. Got a couple minutes. And we'll go there.
Did anybody text Jeremy?
Okay, council, we're, for whatever reason, Jeremy's not with us for his 10:15. Jason has indicated, Jason Spars indicated he would go ahead and fit in that particular time slot. So Jason, let me just share with you a little bit before we get started. This is obviously the interviewing section, period of this process. And the final decision will be made tonight at 5:30. You're certainly welcome to be there if you can. Our intent then would be is to allow the city council members to spend the time between the interview and the city council meeting to formulate their final recommendation. But they do that in private, not public. They will come to the meeting at 5:30. We have some opening discussion items we have to basically do. And then I will call for the vote. And then from that vote, we will proceed until we select, okay, a city council member. During tonight's city council meeting, once that selection is made, then we will ask the city recorder to go ahead and swear that individual in and ask that person to be seated on the city council. And so, and actually, interesting enough, there is going to be one decision that needs to be made, okay? So we'll go through that process. I see Jeremy has just showed, but Jason, you're okay? We'll ask Jeremy if he will go ahead and. You're stepping right into the seat. Okay. Want some do not disturb. Okay. Jeremy, we'll mark you as you did arrive. What you see is 5 questions. We're gonna just ask you to go through those questions at your own pace, provide answers, and then we'll allow the city council to make notes on that. So if you can begin with question number 1.
All right. So for number 1, it's been a morning already. So I kind of see 2, maybe 3 top priorities. One is continued business development and growth, right, to get that tax base up, that sales tax base up, and that'll lead to probably what I'm saying is the 3rd priority, at least what I became concerned with last year, is just to see continued work from the city council as well as partnering with business organizations to get more businesses here, right? To increase not only jobs, like I said originally, that tax base we can draw from. The second one for that is those jobs in cities come in is additional housing, right? And what that looks like. I know last year I got a lot of feedback about what people wanted for housing that, to keep the character of Roy and and how it's been here. I know there's a lot of people that I spoke to on the south side that were not happy about the apartments going in on the north side. As part of that time last year, I also met with the Northern Wasatch Builders and Realtors Association to discuss different options that were possibly viable for Roy. Some of those included just different multi-dwelling unit developments, as well as other items. And continued conversations that I've had with residents and other folks. Land is at a strong premium in this city. I know one of the big things that came up was the cemetery a lot, trying to find a spot for the cemetery. So we're trying to find space for residents that are living, as well as residents that want to stay here forever. I understand that very much. And that kind of gets to my 3rd priority, which I talked about the sales, the getting that tax base up. There's a lot, our demographics, we have a lot of elderly, single income, retired folks, and I'm very concerned about their future in the city, especially if, it's 2 competing priorities, right? We don't want the city to change. We want people to have yards. We want larger houses. At the same time, our older generations generally don't want to take care of that as they get older. But I'm worried if we don't see that business and sales tax growth, additional housing that fits, we'll just say a younger age group, at least initially, we're going to start seeing property taxes have to rise to continue to provide city services that will price out our older folks, right, our older neighbors. And that's something that I've been thinking about a lot. So I'd say those are my top 3 priorities for the city. Actually, I'll add a 4th because I'm selfish, and it's just cybersecurity. So that's my day-to-day job. That's why I'm a little bit delayed. I had a meeting that went long and keep dealing with cities that have ransomware attacks, and it's devastating. So that's a 4th one. Okay. I guess you guys don't ask questions back. We just have to go through these. All right. All right. In lieu of the city's tight budget constraints, would you support proposed property tax increases or be inclined to reduce services should sales tax revenues lag? Why? Perfect question. So going to, how do I say it? Like caveat my answer. I would hope that we could find a way to not reduce services, right? I'll phrase it this way. I would support a property tax increase on somebody like myself, right? Middle-aged for the most part, well enough job. I'm on an acre, right? I would not want to see property tax increases again on those retirement eligible folks that are single income, and continue to support them to live in the city. That said, I haven't gotten a lot of negative feedback about the city, the services the city supports. When I was doing, I'll just be upfront, you know, when I was campaigning last year and talking to a lot more residents, especially again, the younger ones, did not have a problem with taxes increasing to continue to support services. And I'm in that same boat, but I also recognize that my situation is not everybody's situation. So I would, if we were to, okay, in order, I prefer to raise property taxes before we got rid of services. And if we raise property taxes, I would like a program to alleviate that on anybody that would be an extra burden. So we have like, I'm a 100% disabled vet. I get a portion of my property taxes written off. If somebody is at a certain income threshold with their property, that will place an undue burden on them. I think we should find an off-ramp for those individuals. Okay. How would you actively engage residents in the decision-making process and ensure their voices are heard on important city issues? Oh, so, well, I know people write in, they write letters, I've heard repeatedly. I know I have an email address. And even one of the things that I talked about last year that I would love to continue doing is just like a once a month, you know, come meet, you know, come meet a city council member at Scooters or at the library, and just having an open forum where people can show up. Most people won't. In fact, only one person showed up when I did it before, and he's sitting in the audience. So that's how dedicated he is. But I know that when I've been in leadership positions before, you know, having an open door policy, and obviously I'm not going to invite people to my house, but having a spot where I can sit, or any of us can sit, and just as people walk by, they can be like, oh, hey, I hated the way you voted on this thing. Awesome. Thank you for letting me know why, and let's have that conversation. So obviously the city council goes and out in the community, does things with parks open, Roy Days, for example, and you're available there. But I'd really like, should I get the position, I would do like a once a month, hey, let's meet at Scooters, let's meet at the library, and just sit there for an hour, maybe 2 hours, see if anybody comes by. If they do, great. If they don't, I'm gonna bring a good book, so it'll be okay. So that was my idea. I know my phone will be out there, people can get a hold of me, and I'll have a city email address. So just engaging in those conversations, setting correct boundaries. So I had to do that during the campaign. Got some really interesting emails. Is not a problem. That's something I would definitely do. So, okay. How do you plan to work effectively with other council members, city staff, community organizers to achieve shared goals? It's a very broad question. Okay. So in my, I always say my prior life, but in my time in the Air Force, I had to work across many different organizations to achieve goals, right? So I ended up leading the technical side of the Air Force's conversion to Windows 10 back in 2017 it was. So I had to work with the Pentagon, the Secretary of Defense, the Air Force, every base that had Air Force members at it that wasn't in the Air Force. Side note, the Navy was not the easiest one to work with. In fact, they continue to be the hardest one to work with as I'm trying to get veteran interns in. And I had to work with people that I genuinely didn't like. We just had extreme disagreements over how the process should take place. But I told them the same thing that I'll say now is, I'm not married to any particular idea. If I am, you will know up front, right? Like, no, this is a strong go, no go for me. But that doesn't mean we can't have a conversation about it, right? With people here and with Matt or whoever else it is. The idea of a shared goal is a unifying force to move any team forward. And that's what I've seen when I come to the meetings and as part of the campaigning and talking with folks is what it is, right? Is all of this is a team to improve Roy. So my personal idiosyncrasies get very much pushed down into shut up and color mode when I have to partner with a team, because that's just how we get good working teams, right? I'm very aware of different personality types that people have, especially in my job now. You know, we have a lot of neurodivergent individuals that work in cybersecurity, because looking at numbers is a lot easier than looking at people sometimes. So, and I've had to provide counseling in those instances to my teammates about like, hey, this individual communicates this way. That doesn't mean they're mad at you. It's just how they communicate. They're not yelling. They're just, that's how they do it. And we've had some really good success getting projects done, both in the military and in my professional life and other things I volunteer in. It's just recognizing what somebody's capabilities are, how they communicate, including myself, and just trying to weave all of those items together to get towards a good goal at the end. So I was really interesting, it says community organizations here, because when you start dealing with volunteers, and I'm going to assume that that means mostly volunteers, one of the things that I don't ever, or that I've learned not to do for a while now, is just volunteers are volunteers, right? They're not getting paid to do generally what they're volunteering for. They're doing it for the love of whatever that purpose is, and to not abuse that, most importantly, right? To not set unrealistic expectations on them, or to demand things of their time beyond what they've generally stated as their engagement. Because you start burning out volunteers, the whole project's going to die. Because generally, if a volunteer is involved, they're the ones with the passion really pushing it forward for everybody else. So, okay. That was 4. 5. How do you weigh different viewpoints in making complex decisions, especially when there is no clear consensus? Should just put that one up front. that one's rough. So, it's very interesting, because you're never going to have all the data you want. I deal with this in my day-to-day job. You're never going to have, all the easy answers are easy answers. And you're dealing with something like city government. Very rarely are there easy answers. I remember the multiple conversations about the light that needed to get put in for pedestrians over on the other side of the park. And finally, one day there was an answer that came through via legislation, and it got done quick, right? So I know before that it wasn't an easy answer and the residents were upset, but there's reasons for that. So, so one of the things that I do at work when I come up with an idea is, I don't like to play the smartest guy in the room, is I ask people to tell me how I'm wrong. Tell me how this project isn't going to work. Tell me what's wrong with it. Tell me why my idea is stupid, right? And I'm very, I'll say forceful with my team, that I want that feedback. Tell me why my idea of doing this thing isn't going to work. And I'm starting to finally get it, which is nice. But that's the same kind of attitude I would bring here, right? Is, hey, I have a viewpoint on a topic. Why in this scenario where we don't have consensus do you think my viewpoint is wrong, right? Why is, and then what's your input? That garners, hey, well, here's why it's wrong, because this is what I think. So then that's another way for me to gather information. And the other part that comes into that, if we're talking about working with other city staff, other organizations, right? There may not ever be a 100% agreeable solution, right? But that's where you come in and be like, okay, well, I wanted A, B, and C. Can't get A because of reasons you just told me. Can I get B and C? They're like, yes, you can get B and C, but now I need to give up D and F or whatever it is, right? There's a negotiation that has to take place. And as long as that's in good faith and you're upfront and honest and you seek feedback about that entire process, then you can come to a resolution where nobody is 100% happy, but everybody got something, right? And the caveat that, of course, is that people need to act in good faith in these conversations. If people aren't acting in good faith, then that's a whole other that's a whole other conversation and question, and that's, and again, that just takes more communication, right? So that would be, hey, I think so-and-so's kind of, not being communicative with us as they should be. I think there's an ulterior motive. What do you think, right? And if it comes to that, and depending on what's legally allowed, that can characterize the rest of that conversation, the rest of that project or engagement. So, yeah, the no clear consensus is, I deal with that day to day doing incident response because, we'll go into a city, we'll just say a city that's had an event, and I'll be like, hey, all right, give us all the data. Here's what all the evidence shows. And the client will be like, well, what happened here, here, and here? Like, can't tell you because there's no evidence for it, right? And they want to know, soup to nuts. How did somebody get into their environment? How did they hack it? What data did they steal? Why did they do it? And without all that evidence, right? Because the threat actor, the bad guy is not going to act in good faith. That's their job, is to act in poor faith. So it becomes really important to be able to communicate clearly through that entire process, right? So that entire complex decision, are we going to rebuild your entire network? Or are we going to rebuild a portion of your network? How much is that going to cost, right? That we communicate effectively through that entire process, lay down objectives and goals, lay down their concerns. For the city, it's the same as a business, for these complex issues of we provide services. How is whatever decision we're coming to going to impact those services? It's the same thing. And then set realistic goals, right? Like, what are we going to rebuild? What are we going to redo? Same thing for the city, right? Are we going to continue to offer services? Do we need to raise taxes? Are we going to reduce services? Are we going to talk to another city about maybe taking something on? So yeah, I'm very used to no clear consensus these days, where my Air Force time, somebody always got to provide really clear consensus there. So it was very interesting. Okay. I talk fast, so it's about 20 minutes. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. A good one. You do.
We'll go ahead. We're just going to take a few minutes to kind of regroup. And then Samantha, you're next up. If it's okay, we'll go back to our original schedule. Okay. Okay. Just give us a couple of minutes here to kind of group, and we'll ask you if you don't mind. We can have you come right in and step up.
Nope, I'm just gonna put them in a stack.
We have to retain them.
Yeah. Oh, so you're not like sharing, no.
No.
No, they just have to. Okay,
I know, it's right, turn the plate.
No.
No.
Like, it makes sense in my head, right? You should see some of my notes and stuff from like actual meetings. I'll jot stuff down and, like, this would never make sense to other people.
Hey, I do these like, they're called legendary. They're like protein. Pop-Tarts. So, I think that's
Granola bar.
protein Pop-Tarts. They have like 20 grams of protein. And they taste very similar if you like, because I do it every morning. If you warm them up in the microwave, just like a cinnamon Pop-Tart. Half the sugars. So that's how I rationalize it.
It's kind of like good and healthy, right?
Yes,
It's good,
yes.
but healthy.
Correct.
Pop-Tarts.
Correct. I know.
He's right below, so he's right in.
Yeah.
That sounds like to me, cherry Coke.
You love that?
I remember growing up having cherry Coke.
I know, but if it's cherry, that's fruit,
Yeah.
but
Oh.
how a cherry Coke can be good for you.
I don't think so. Cherries would be.
We take our annual trip. We need more of it.
call
I don't know what happens. You get three right at.
2.5 months. I have to drink every morning one of those strawberry inshores.
Well, because you're a Fairlife guy too, right?
I like
They,
Fairlife.
they pulled it off the shelf. There's something going on. You can't get them anywhere. Yeah, my wife was just telling me that because I bounce back and forth between Fairlife and Premier Protein. And she read somewhere that Fairlife has stopped production. So whatever you've got is what you've got now. So
May go away.
yes,
I like it.
yeah.
Probably wants to get into scan this
We
year.
had that conversation with that at Fairlife one time
Yeah.
here on the city
I
council.
like it.
I do too, yeah.
I was watching, I'm like, it's.
If you go away, it's expensive for our family. But like,
Why?
She did.
So when she comes back, I'll go ahead and get started on.
It's coming.
She's getting a beverage. There you go.
Okay.
There you go, you found one.
Zero.
Don't set it down, careful. There's cups, go grab a cup from them.
Did they explode when I opened?
I don't think so.
Think.
Just do it fast.
Yeah.
Way fast.
Put it away.
Well, not in the
Yeah,
room.
point it to the
What about
wall.
the sink?
Right?
The other one to the right.
Put it over, are they saying, put it over the sink or everything?
I thought he would never
I found a Nature Valley bar that I really like. It's a,
Stop the meeting and make comments, for sure.
I did. It's a cinnamon one that I had in Florida, so I ended up adding it to my Amazon subscribe and save, so I have a whole bunch of those too. So,
Okay, council, Smith has been here for a while, had a chance to look over the questions. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask her if she'd go ahead, and it's a little bit early, but the fact that she's here and she's had a chance to read through the questions, we're just gonna ask her if she would.
I shared my resume because I didn't get it brought back in.
You certainly can.
I have one for everyone.
Yeah, would you get it to Brittany?
Yes,
And
I
then
have enough
Brittany can
copies.
go ahead and get it distributed.
I'm a teacher. I'm good with the copy machine. Thank you.
Hey, Samantha, thank you for joining us. In front of you is the questions. If you just like, you can certainly read the questions if you'd like. Oh, thank you. Or we have them in front of us, so it's kind of up to you, but when you're ready, please go ahead.
Great. Well, first I want to introduce myself. My name is Samantha Bills and I live in Roy. I'm a lifelong resident. And I'm proud to say the best thing Roy's done is they put up Royal Way, because I live on Royal Way, because we all know. So I love the street signs. Okay, so that's just, I want to tell you guys, thank you for that. Okay, the first question. Based on what you know about city government, what do you see as top priorities for Roy and why? Well, my husband was a policeman for Riverdale, or first in Ogden, and then he had to leave Ogden City to go to Riverdale because Riverdale paid more. I think employee retention is highly, highly important. We cannot get, when you get new people, I'm a teacher, we turn teachers over like our washing machine, and we need to retain our employees. We have great city administration. You see them at the Roy Days or at the pool parties. My son was a lifeguard. They were always there passing out the food. They're at Roy Days. We are so lucky to have hands-on people. And when you walk into Roy City, you see them, which that doesn't happen in every city. So employee retention. So I think wages is something we really need to stay focused on. People have to go where they can support their family, whether they want to or not. Also, I think if we educate the community about the budget, I don't think as a citizen, I've ever been educated on what the budget looks like. As a teacher, I've been a teacher 21 years. I look at education as the key. If you've ever been in schools, angry people are mad because they don't know what's going on. Once you talk to them, they understand it. And on planning commission, I serve on the planning commission right now. I've noticed that once people understand, you can't tell someone that owns 3 acres, you can't put a house there. It's their land to do with what they want. They're like, oh, so it's not Roy who wants all these apartments. It's the citizen that wants to sell their land. So to me, education and transparency is number one. The happier the citizens are, and people live a long time in Roy. I look at Anne and she's lived here forever. Paul's have lived here. You've lived here forever. Willard, Mayor Willard Cragen, he lived here forever. People just don't leave Roy because it's a great place to live. And so I think education and Transparency is very important. And really, we need to retain our employees. I would also look at more of using some technology to try to figure out the vandalism of the bathrooms and the kids with the TikTok knocking down the fence posts. The cops can't be everywhere, and I know that from being married to one. He's not a cop anymore, but it was hard, and Riverdale was small like Roy. So there's ways to use technology to manhandle some of that stuff and get some of those issues solved. And it wouldn't be as expensive as necessarily hiring more people. But I don't know if we ever could have too many cops and firemen, and paramedics. And ours are the best. I love our Roy firemen. They're so good to our schools. Okay, that's a tangent, sorry. Okay. Question number 2. In lieu of the city's tight budget constraints, would you support proposed property tax increase or be more inclined to reduce services should sales tax revenues lag, and why? I agree that property taxes are an issue for people. But I think there's ways to look at things creatively. I know every year they have a hard time filling the summer jobs at the aquatic center. They can't find people to work for the rec center. There's programs out there where we can hire youth and have the state pay for it and then give us bonuses. And I know that from being a teacher, I work with those agencies. So I think instead of maybe just jumping to raising taxes, we could look at some innovative ways to bring more money into the city that they pay us to fill our own needs. And so those are some things that I could bring to the table, which would help not only the city, but we could educate the public in general on how to get those services for their students. Because then that would help as well, because more educated students makes it so they can buy houses, buy our goods. It just could be a full circle of how we can increase our revenue and keep more people in Roy. But I think if we have to increase taxes because of, I'll be honest, I haven't looked at the budget. I won't pretend that I have. I know that I hear about we need the businesses that's how we pay our revenue and all that. I've learned all of that on Planning Commission, but to say that I dove into the budget before this, I didn't. Because I think that you guys are the experts, you've been doing it, and it would be a learning curve for whoever decides to sit on the seat. And that has to be something that I could look at it and be grumpy about it and not understand it, or I could wait and ask the experts or reach out to the people that know the answers. So I don't think that reducing services is ever the answer. I think our city is growing. We have more and more people because people are living with multifamilies or living within homes. So we definitely need our services. But I do know there's innovative ways to look at bringing more money into the city without it costing the citizens per se. And also filling the needed jobs that we have. Because I know a lot of people want to work in Roy. The kids always want to work for coach baseball I did that. I did the batting cages and my kids have worked at the pool. So I think that's one way, is to look at different ideas. How would you actively engage residents in the decision-making process and ensure their voices are heard on important city issues? First off is being available. I'm a pretty friendly person, so I don't go many places and not see someone I know. And I'm not one that would shy away from talking to people. So I think you need to be present and we need to be honest. And if you don't know, say, we don't know, but that's a good suggestion or that's a good idea. I don't believe in lying to people. If someone asks me a question, I don't know the answer, I'm gonna pester people till I figure it out because that's what I do. But I think being honest and then also following up with people. I taught at Roy Junior for 11 years. I also, when Workforce Services was in the biomed building, I did food stamps, Medicaid, and that out of that building. So I got to know a lot of people by just working here, plus living here. And I shop here. My kids have been all through the Roy schools. So I'm not afraid. People will ask me questions. They know I'm on Planning Commission because I'm not shy. Well, I don't talk much there, but I'm not a very shy person. I'm approachable, I feel. And so I just tell them, I don't know, but I can ask Steve, my dentist, every time I go, Dr. Wade, Spencer Wade. He's like, how do I do this? I'm like, call Steve, I don't know. But I follow up with him and I send an email. And I think just being that person that does what you say you're gonna do goes a long way, even if you don't know the answer. Because I don't think I should try to talk for someone that's not my job. So you need to ask the right person the right questions. How do you plan to work effectively with other council members, city staff, and community organizations to achieve shared goals? I've been a volunteer in Roy for most of my children's life. My oldest is 27. So I've done AYSO, Community Sick Care. I've helped with the Boys and Girls Club. I worked with UNYS Soccer. I have volunteered in all of the schools. And I think the biggest thing is people will tell you what they want. We just have to listen. And you just get them to the right place. Once again, I think that if people understand why things are happening, they're more likely to be supportive. And I don't hear often, oh, we hate the city council, or even when they talk about planning commission, they say, why are we getting more apartments? And I say, because you can't tell people how to use their land. And if I had 5 acres, I would surely sell it. So I think that we just have to be available and honest, and we don't lie. We say if we don't know, we will figure it out and get back with you. And I think that that's an appropriate way to handle people. And if they trust you, they know you'll follow through. Okay, how do you weigh different viewpoints when making complex decisions, especially when there is no clear consensus? I love on planning commission, if we can't decide, Steve tells us to table it. I love the idea of being able to think about it a little longer if there's questions. Sometimes you think you have all the information, and then you have a public hearing and you say, oh, wow, I never even thought of that. And I think our citizens deserve the opportunity to have their questions and their vision and their viewpoints considered. So sometimes taking a little more time to create clarity, I think, is a good way. I also think that we need to seek to understand. We shouldn't just make decisions based on, well, we did this before, this happened. We need to look at every situation individually. I would absolutely defer to my fellow council members. You guys have done this, you know the stuff. I feel like I'm finally kind of knowledgeable on city planning, because man, that's a lot to learn. There's a lot that goes into these decisions, and I think if the community understood the picture a little more, I think they would understand why decisions are made. Because it's confusing, and I'm at the meetings, and sometimes I say to Steve, whoa, I don't know what you just said, we got to say that again. But I really think listening and answering and being available and following up with people I'm a teacher, that's what I do. And I love people. Poor Aunt Jackson, she knows I go in Roy High, and they're like, oh, here comes Sam, disrupting the whole office again. But I don't know, I think you just need to be friendly and transparent and approachable, and I think you'll be fine. And you have good applicants, so whoever you choose, I'm sure will do great.
Samantha, thank you.
That was a lot in a short amount of time. I'm a talker. Well, thank you for this. This has been kind of cool to watch, this opportunity. So thank you for letting me come.
Thank you.
Hey, well, you guys have a good day. Jason, like, I didn't know Sam could talk that much. Bye.
Oh, here's your pen.
I rambled.
Oh,
Good luck to you, sir.
sorry.
I think you'll take a few minutes, and then we'll ask Jason if you will be ready. Janelle's here. Let me just make a comment. I tried to tell all the applicants where we are. This is the interviewing process, okay, for the position. And our intent then would be is to complete this. Well, it looks like we may have this completed right around noon or thereabouts. Tonight, between the interviewing process and actual decision where it'll be made will take place at the 5:30 meeting tonight at City Council. Strongly recommend, if you can, join us tonight. I will be asking for a vote from the council on their decision, and then we were, based on that process and how that goes through, our intention is to seat the city council member tonight. The city recorder will in fact swear that individual in the city council meeting at 5:30. And interesting enough, there is a vote that will be taken by all city council members once we get that seated. And so the business of doing city business is going to take place, even in our meeting tonight. So if you can, please be there. And as we go through the voting process, the city council is hopeful we'll make a decision tonight. Again, thank you for being with us, going through this process. If you can, and I think you already have, the questions in front of you. Please look at those questions, and then be ready, as we go through the final part of this interviewing process, so. We'll let the council go ahead and make a couple more notes, and then we'll ask Jason, if you don't mind, if you could, join us again. The restrooms, by the way, if you need them, or through that door to the left or down that hall to the left, and then you'll see them on the left down there.
Is that your exit over the?
Yeah, that was my, I was gonna do my exit overview, Delta flight. No, I can wave at you, Darren, but,
Sign language, all right?
oh, God,
Are you know the spelling?
Well, it used to be better. Those kids and brothers, I'm like, how do you spell?
I do that all the time. They send me texts. I'm like, Dad, that's not Siri.
I need to go put my can that's in the sink in the garbage can. I couldn't find the garbage can. Then when I walked out, I found it.
How about when you're ready?
Explode, so it was a good thing to open
Did
it.
it?
over. It did. Yeah, it had that big bulge on the
Yeah.
bottom, so.
Was it bad?
Well, not, I mean, it wasn't too bad. I mean, I got enough out of it. So,
Are you ready?
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go ahead and we'll get started with Jason. Jason, if you could join us. Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Just like it.
We had you sitting there just a few minutes ago, and Jeremy showed up, but thank you for your patience.
Great, thank you, Mary.
Questions obviously in front of you. If you'd just like to read them, that'd be great, and we'll follow on and take our notes. So begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you for seeing me, council. We can go into, well, before I go into the questions, I guess I'll just address council for just a second. I have in the past had quite a few opportunities to talk with Joe Paul and consider him a friend, and me and him and I have some very complementary viewpoints upon what city should do in different times. And it's upsetting for me that he had to make the decision to leave. But if I were to be on the council, I don't think that I'd be a disruptive influence. And I think that it would probably be a very similar experience. While I can't fill Joe Paul's shoes, I would feel that I would probably make the similar decisions that he might in the same instance, I would hope. But I hope to see him again in city council or in other aspects within the government works. So anyway, with that, I'll just go into number one. Based on what I know about the city government, what I always see as top priorities for the city of Roy. Well, most of these questions I think are just more to show that I have a basic understanding of what the city has issues in. Because a lot of these issues they're ongoing, but I think the city's excelled in balancing the revenues that the city has taken in, and has to balance that with inflation, competing, keeping quality personnel with the competing cities around us is an issue, and the responsible growth for the city is also another issue, and our traffic's another one that we are always talking about. But I believe that the current sitting council has made very good decisions upon these things, and I wouldn't make any changes overall to anything that has been done. I would like to continue to maintain these priorities to ensure that Roy remains a thriving and prosperous community. Number two, in lieu of the city's tight budget constraints, would you support proposed property tax increase or be more inclined to reduce services to sales tax and revenues due to the lag in line? That's always a problem issue for an elected official, especially if you want to keep your position. You can't be popular by raising taxes, of course. But my opinion on it would be, I believe the same as the sitting council, that you look at all the avenues that you have, the possibilities where you could possibly cut if that was a mandatory thing that we needed to reduce the budget or increase taxes. And after analyzing and reviewing and taking in opinions from the city, from the general management of the different divisions, and reviewing it all, and if the only decision left to make is that we would have to reduce city services to a point where we would be losing out on our quality of life, then I would unfortunately have to vote for the increase in the tax. I still think that we would, as a reasonable small tax increase would still put us below what Davis County is. And while I feel for the individuals of our residents and that are on a fixed income, which is a very difficult thing for them, some of these decisions that you have to make as a city council are not taken lightly, or nor are they easy to make. And I think that that's where I would go with that. Number 3, how would you actively engage residents in decision-making process to ensure their voices are heard on important city issues? I'm dedicated to maintaining open and transparent communication with our city members, or community members, sorry. My approach involves mainly engaging with the public through various channels, including social media. I can give a particularly notable example of which, while I was on the planning commission many years ago, we had a resident that had posed a question and had some comments about it, and I took the time to inform her about how the city had run those things in the past while I was not representing the city, but I knew of such things being on the planning commission. And I had done it on many times with other citizens, but this one, she took some particular notice and decided to personally message me and ask more information. And I freely talked to her on my free time about it. And that person, we all know, is Glenda Moore. And so since then, she's become a shining star in our community. While I can take no credit for her meteoric rise and information giving to our community, it did help that all it takes is communicating on a trustful, respectful manner with residents and inform them instead of getting angry or defensive about it, and explain to them some of the issues, and they can become an ally, which Glenda has certainly become an ally, in my opinion, to the city. So that's how I would engage with the public. 4, how do you plan on work effectively with other city council members, city staff, community organizations to achieve a shared goal? My 9-year tenure on the City Planning Commission, including both as the chairman and the vice chair, has provided me with some valuable experience with community planning and decision-making, and I think those would be valuable to the city council. But my tenure on there, I've worked with city officials that we have, and I think that I feel that I can communicate effectively with them, and I believe that would be an asset as well. Okay. We'll move on to number 5. How do you weigh different viewpoints when making complex decisions, especially when there's no clear consensus? In face of complex and controversial matters, I approach them with a methodical and collaborative mindset by carefully examining each issue and seeking legal guidance. When necessary, I believe that we can make informed and equitable decisions to the benefit of the majority of our residents. And that's all I got to say about that. I appreciate the city council's time.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, appreciate that. Hey, council, just take a few minutes if you would.
Yeah, my old reporter days.
Got your notes taken as soon as Because we got the buy.
Yeah, because I was talking to.
Darren,
Yeah.
as soon as Randy gets
Chris
done, gets
yesterday.
back, we'll
It's
go
okay.
ahead. and
Yeah.
start.
Yeah.
I was talking to Chris yesterday in the office and he's really glad we had this week off to try to feel better. First,
They're all hurt.
first they thought the cold was gonna be out for 2 or more weeks, but he thinks that
Yeah.
he might be able to get in that game. Or game. He said he's gonna probably go to the Granger Box Elder game, but, we're just hoping that we can be bountiful again because on social media, there's so much crap about us. And if they don't understand what we're reading, if other things that they beat us, that they should be about us. Right.
Or Darren, it's Darren next.
Oh, man. You have the questions in front of you? Perfect.
Hope I can follow my own notes. It's all over the place. Oh, well.
You can read the question if you like. We do have a copy of the questions in front of us.
Sometimes you may ask a question, my phone goes through stupid hearing things and it shuts my out for a couple of seconds, so sometimes I can't hear you, so you have to be patient. Okay. I guess, thanks for the opportunity, I guess, that you guys have spent your time up there. Coming up, I guess, to listen. Okay. Okay, on the number one question that you asked, based on what you know about city government, what you see as top priorities, I see the top priorities probably of the city is probably number one is probably economical development, probably being my big thing that the city probably looks at all the time because it all kind of falls in line with everything in this whole page. Taxes, services, good service provided for the citizens, and also for beautification of the city to draw in the economical development. So it all kind of ties together in my opinion in question number one. So them are the things I feel are very important to the city, the government. And number two, in lieu of the tight budget constraints, would support property tax increase or be more inclined to reduce services. It's kind of one of those bittersweet things. I believe that the citizens, like anybody, needs a break on taxes, but likewise, also the employees need also that break also. So I would think that would, even though we may not, it may be a win-win situation for the people, the citizens would understand more of what the employees do and what their needs are and their wants are, and understand exactly what they need. I believe it'd be a much better situation for the citizens to want to pay more money in taxes. And I think if they could come to a compromise, maybe not get the full amount they may be asking for the employees. And likewise, and the citizens feel like they would win on that one. I feel they would win and say, well, yeah, we did get a reduced tax. They were going to ask for this much, but we came to a compromise in the middle there. And I think a compromise is important on those situations and anything like that. A compromise would be really good for the citizens and for the employees. And sometimes you have to give and take a little bit. And I think that would be a good situation to give and take. And number three, how would you actively engage in making processes to ensure the voices of this are heard of the citizens? That's kind of a tough one because a lot of people there, including myself, really is not the greatest on the website. And some people aren't savvy on that stuff and on that social media. Some people don't even get on it. So I would try to figure out a way, maybe if you could get volunteers, citizens in the own community, maybe, that would say, okay, this geographical area, say Joe over here does this, or Johnny over here does this, or whatever, does this over in this area. And they could either pass out flyers or go to their neighbors, the 20 neighbors, and say, hey, we're having a meeting and it's about this. You might want to come and be interested. And I think that I honestly believe that if people got more involved, they would understand why the employees want more money, why the city needs these things. But if they don't understand, it's pretty frustrating to say, hey, we're going to raise your tax. You go, well, why? And then, well, if they don't understand, they're going to just be upset. Because it took me a long time to understand that cities, the Roy City, any other city is not a revenue-based business. And people don't understand that. And so you got to kind of weigh the needs of what the citizens want and what it costs. But they got to understand the cost behind those needs and wants. And if they don't understand that, it's pretty frustrating. So that's what I would think would be a good thing. And so, and then number four, How do you plan to work effectively with other council members and city staffs and community organizations and achieve planned goals? I believe a way to, obviously, to get to know the councilman, you gotta talk to them, and councilman, you gotta talk to them, understand them personally and understand where they're coming from and what they want, why they want it. I think it's important. People don't sometimes forget the why. They just say why, you know, they don't even ask why. They just say, that's stupid, but they need to know why. There may be a reason why they want that. And so I think why is very important. And I believe on the heads that I even in my own jobs I worked in the past and now currently, the heads of departments, I'm constantly involved with different heads of departments and groups. And I honestly believe that if you work with those people, or at least go down on those heads of departments and understand the same thing, wants and needs. Why do you want this and why do you really need this? And if they say, well, I don't know, well, that's not good enough. And we need to understand. And I think if you understand the heads of departments and what they want and what they need, I think you're gonna be far better off to give a good explanation of why. And they can say, okay, yeah, I can totally see why you need a new truck, you need a new tractor or whatever you need. Because yeah, it sure saved the city in the long run if you had this, this, and this. And so I believe that you need to understand what they do and be in their shoes kind of and get a feel for what they're doing and what their job is. Because sometimes we kind of overlook that. And I do that in my job too. So why do you need that? Well, come down here and watch. You'll see why I need that. And I think involved with that, I think would be a good way. Even if you spend a couple hours or an hour or whatever, just talk to them and understand what their department even does. Because some people may not even know what they do. So I think that would be my way of doing it. And, how do you effectively, that be another way? And also speaking along the terms of the, what it comes up here, I just skipped a kind of some, so I kind of went with my notes, but on the inclined services reduced, just so you know that whole dump, I think beautification all ties into this as well, because that whole dump, you know, the dump week we had this week, I had a neighbor that I helped her load up because her dad's sick and he can't do anything and her. Anyway, so I helped him get some garbage ready for a trailer. I says, follow me up to the city dumps. I got a load too, and I'll help you unload if they can't. Well, she pulled up into the city, you know, over the city here. And she was so impressed. She says, these 5 guys came over here and unloaded me and I was gone. She says, she just couldn't talk good about the employees and what they had done in that program. And to me, that all kind of ties into the, I kind of skipped some stuff, kind of ties into code enforcement too. I mean, to me, a community, if it looks good you're going to be able to get developers come and want to be here. Who wants to go in a blighted city and put a business? I don't. But if you have those things all in place, I think this whole 5 questions, if you start looking at and reading, they all kind of tie together. And those first things, development, taxes, and beautification, it all ties together and the way this all works together. And I think if all of it does, and like volunteers, I think I remember years ago, I got asked to be volunteered at the Salmon Bay. That's probably one of the funnest things I did. I didn't really want to do it, but I did it and I ended up doing it. But I think if you get those kind of things going with some more and more of the citizens involved with those little things like that, they'll understand why you're spending the money and why things are going the way they're going. Well, this is, oh yeah, that was pretty fun. We enjoyed that. And I think that would be a good, I mean, sorry, I kind of jumped around a little bit because I was trying to read what I wrote. And so anyway, how do you weigh difference between viewpoints of making complex decisions, especially when there's no, that sometimes can be tough, but I believe that if you're trying to make a conscious decision, and I believe those that are involved in that conscious decision don't have enough facts in their basis of the information. I think that if you have time to revisit that and hash it out to where you can get more information about that, more details, because I think sometimes we just make a decision on just hearing something. But if you do a little research, you'll find there's a lot of research out there about anything you want to change or do. And I think that if you research it out again and come back to the drawing table, I think you would probably come to consensus, and all of you to understand, because each of you understand why is important. A lot of people skip that. Why is this so important to you? Well, this is why it's important to me. It may be different for me and it may be different to you, or maybe have a different reason why it's important to them. But I believe those things are important, and I would revisit it and then bring it back and try again, where I felt that most of us had the same consensus of what was going to happen and why we're doing it. And I think that's about the answer to my 5 questions. In short.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Darren. See ya.
And I retire in one more week.
See ya.
You're still gonna do the lawns though, right?
What's that?
Still gonna do the lawns.
Yeah, I still do more. I may have to do more of them now.
Really hates my lawn.
Okay, council, if you just take a few minutes and then we'll ask Janelle if she'll join us. Council, okay? Yeah. Ready? Ready? Hi, you ready? Okay, Janelle, thank you for joining us. As you know, you got some questions. I think you picked up your packet and then the questions are in front of you. When you're ready, go ahead. You can read the question if you'd like, or we got the questions in front of us. We can follow along. So when you're ready to start, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. First of all, thanks for letting us all come and apply, and we're of course sad to see Joe Paul leave, as been serving our city a long time, and we appreciate all that he's done. So just jumping right in, number one, I think that one of our top priorities in Roy City, and I may have answered this differently a couple years ago, but right now I think it has to be revenue. Just because that affects our taxes and our planning and everything. I think one way we could focus on that is to focus on businesses, and I know that Brody's been working on that. And smart city planning, which as a planning commissioner, we've tried to do that, but also the general plan that was accomplished right before I got in. I think that helps us focus on that, on smart planning, and plan in the right places and bring in revenue with businesses, but also with housing. I think also we could continue to get business owner feedback from our city. I know that I was part of the Roy Business Advisory Board at one point, and I actually thought that the feedback from the business owners was really good. I think that we could do something like that again, but maybe not in the same exact format, but inviting maybe business owners to come in and give feedback more often in an open house type of setting. I think that we continue to network with business owners, which I'm also sure Brody is working on. And helping push that shop local campaign that has kind of been going on and off for a couple years now. I know that I try to promote Roy businesses whenever I can. When we have visitors come in town, I take them to all the Roy restaurants and everything we can think of to do at Roy first, because we want to spend all of our money in Roy as much as possible. So we try to do, all of our shopping here that we can. So I think a secondary type of thing is that we need to focus on keeping our good employees. I don't know all of the employees of Roy City, but the few that I do know are very capable and very good. And we want to keep them around, obviously. And so talking with, I know you guys always do this, but if I was a city council member, I would meet with all the heads of departments and figure out what their needs and things are and why, maybe their ideas of how to keep the budget down, but also make our employees feel valued. And another priority that I just kind of mentioned before is just the housing and I think that comes with good planning. So we want to keep as many of our Roy residents living here. So we have a couple generations of Roy lovers here for a while. So number 2, concerning taxes, I did go back and watch all of your very painful planning meetings. Your work sessions and things, and I went back to rewatch those just to try to get a better understanding of that. And I think in the end that you guys did the right thing. I think that it was a very difficult decision, and I think that this coming year will probably have a very similar difficult decision, unfortunately. And but I do think some of the top priorities in that taxes are, keeping those COLAs. I know that I wish that in the past they had kept doing that so that we wouldn't have had to face that challenge in the last couple of years. But I also think that we have to be very careful with our rainy day fund, like was mentioned. And so I don't think it should be used except in extreme emergencies. And so I guess what I'm coming to, the point I'm making is that I think that sometimes raising the taxes might be necessary, but I think like what you guys tried to do is to keep it as low as possible, but also make it livable enough that we aren't kicking the problem down the road. As people like to say, kick the can down the road. We know from our past history in Roy that becomes a problem if we don't take care of issues now and look to our future. Then there will be future issues and they'll just snowball bigger and bigger. And so we need to make sure that we're taking care of that. And that might mean that, that we have to cut certain things. I don't know. That's something that you come to when you come to the budget. I know that every single department cut at least, I think it was 7.5%, and that's a lot, and so they're making great sacrifices already. And I think that just constant communication with the city employees to know how we can make those things work. I don't think there's a right answer, I guess, for taxes. Number 3, how would we actively engage residents? I feel like this is my forte. I went to school for public relations, and that is, my brain just thinks about that all the time. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I've been serving in public volunteer positions for several years now. Most recently, the most time consuming has been the PTSA president, which is Parent Teacher Student Association at Sandridge Junior High. And I've definitely used those public relations skills there and tried to improve communication and educate parents as well. There's a lot of people that reach out and ask me questions about the school. And so I've learned I have to be in constant contact with the school to know that I'm answering questions correctly and not just giving crazy answers. But I think when it comes to the city, I think education is really important to help engage our citizens, because I know that just from being on the planning commission and other things I've been involved with in the city, like a lot of stuff you just don't know until you know it, right? And so you don't know how the civics of a city work all the time, especially because every city has different policies and things. And so I think education is so important, and I think sharing that on social media. I'm not afraid of social media. I have ever since college. I mean, I'm not so young as that I used it in high school or anything, but I've used it since college. And because of my degree, I've used it a lot in volunteer positions as well. I run several social media type of pages and things to build up my community in certain ways. And so I think that just educating, you know, this is what each department does. These are their, this is, you know, their obligations and what they're supposed to do. And then, because a lot of people don't know who to call when they do have a problem. So I think that's important. And then showing up, just being able to let people see you out in the community, I think that's really important as well. I know that there's been a few legislators that I see literally everywhere I go at the state level, you know, and I'm impressed with that. I think that that's important, that they're out in the community, because that means that they're talking to people regularly. I also think you have, you know, your traditional things, email, social media, the website, and of course, phone calls and text. But then you also, I think there's also an idea that I have that some people have alluded to actually, is that I think we could have open house type meetings based on the 8 neighborhoods that are in the general plan. I think that that's a great part of our general plan. And I think that it not only promotes communication with our residents, but it also creates a sense of community. And I think that as we grow, that's something that citizens have been worried about, is losing their sense of community. And having come from a very small town in Idaho growing up, like that sense of community is really important to me as well. And I think that you can create a community though, even in a bigger city. Roy, to me, when I first came here, was gigantic, you know, and but I've managed to carve out my own little village and be a part of our city. And I think that I want everyone to feel that same thing when they're in Roy. And so I think that's important. And I think that having those open house type meetings and focusing on those different neighborhoods would help the neighbors connect with each other, and as well as the council connect with them. Okay, so number 4, how would you plan to work effectively with other council members, city staff, and community organizations? I think with council members, I think respect is important. I already respect all of you. I think that even if we might differ on opinions, I think that there's lots of value in your opinions. I think that we have a thing in our family we call van talk, and that means that this all started because my kids got done with a soccer game and they're like, oh, that other team, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, we'll talk about this in the van, you know, they're standing right behind you. And so I think that's another thing, is like not to speak ill of other council members or the city staff to other people. I think, you know, there's a time and a place, and there's private conversations you can have with, you know, if we have a problem, Matt is always there that people can go talk to and things like that. And I think that's important. And also with city staff, the city staff part, I think just constant communication and being willing to hear them out. And I know a lot of you guys do that as well, that the staff feels like they can come talk to you. And community organizations, I think this is a great one. I work with communities that care. They have a lot of same goals as the city. We want our youth to, you know, not be doing bad things, taking drugs, and have good mental health, and our PTAs and our schools, and pretty much every organization I can think of in the city wants that same thing. And I think that We can support each other by, attending key events, inviting them to come to our key events, building relationships with the leaders of those organizations. And I think that will help us know how we can support each other and achieving the same goals. I've also noticed when you invite people personally to things, they feel a lot more obligated to come or more important. And so I think that personal invitations are always good. Okay, so number 5, how do you weigh different viewpoints when making complex decisions, especially when there's no clear consensus? I mean, this would be like my life daily, just with my family. I have 2 teenagers and my husband and I, we don't always see eye to eye on lots of things. I'm sure a lot of you know how that is. So I think that, first of all, the most important thing is to try to see all sides of an issue. And sometimes that means asking questions. Sometimes that means you might need to do a little research. I found a lot of times someone else's views spark ideas for me. And from those conversations, I come up with something that's better than I would have originally if I was just following my own idea. And I think that that's important. I'll give you a couple examples of that. As PTSA president, I had a parent really mad at the beginning of last year about a fee that we were going to charge for a dance. And at first I was like, well, we need to make money. Like, why would they be so mad at me? Blah, blah, blah. But after talking with a parent and doing a little research also on what was allowed for fees, because we're a different organization than the school, but holding our event at the school, I came to understand that this parent just was worried about children, students that didn't have a lot of money to be attending school events. And so we were able to find a solution for that. And even though it may still have not been exactly what everybody wanted, I think it was a good solution. So that's an example of it. And then one example I also alluded to in my cover letter was that I worked on passing a bill with at the time Representative Musselman. My child had been left on a school bus, and I was, of course, very upset by that. I didn't know who to go to find help, to try to rectify the situation. I'd been going back and forth with the school district. Anyway, and so when I finally called him, I was just like, oh, he's listening to me, and he's like, we can do something about that. And I was like, what? We can? And so we worked on a bill, but during that process of the bill as well, I didn't get exactly what I wanted. I wanted to make every bus driver go to the back of the bus, push a button that turned off the alarm, because they do have those, and then they go to the front of the bus. And if you didn't push the alarm would go off and force you to go back and push it. And so that they would be forced to check to make sure the children were all there. But he was like, I've talked to some of the education people, and that's just they're probably not gonna pass that because of funding issues. And so I was like, okay. And so we came kind of to a different idea. The idea was to just to give it a little teeth and say every school district needed to have a law or a policy that if this happened, that these would be the consequences and things like that. And so it didn't cost any money, but we were able to give it a little more teeth and, help hopefully prevent some of that in the future. And so I think sometimes, we don't always get what we want, but there are compromises we can make. And a lot of times those compromises can still end up with a good result in the end. So I think that is all I have today, but thank you so much for letting me come.
And thank you.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, council, finish marking your information, and then we'll have a little bit of talk, and I'll ask for a motion. there? Okay, council, it's 11:30. We got done a little bit earlier than thought. Please take a look at the candidates. You've got lots of information. I think you'll find that we have, based on the interviews and the information, probably have several very qualified candidates for your consideration. What I like, if I can, is just invite you to, obviously, tonight's meeting. We'll go for a vote somewhat at the beginning as we start this process. And then based on that vote, we'll move through it. If we got ties and other things, so we're ready to get us down to the single individual. Looks very promising. If you do have any questions or comments relative to this that you'd like to talk to someone else, certainly I'm not a voting member, so you can talk to me. You've got 3 other individuals who are here. If there was something you'd like to gather some information, we're all non-voting, but the important part of this, you're making a very important decision as we now move Royce City forward, okay, in our efforts. So please, if you will, consider that if you need that. I again ask that you don't talk to each other except in a public meeting, but we certainly will give you time during the meeting if you'd like to get some ideas or make some comments relative to each other before we go for the vote. Okay, any comments or questions before we ask for a motion to adjourn? Okay, then do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Randy. Do I have a second? Thank you, Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you for your time. Good meeting.